All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest tonight is Dr. Jill Stein. She is running for president of the United States through the Green Party. Welcome back, Jill.
Great to be with you, Sabby.
So, Jill, something really cool happened since the Biden and Trump debate. I don't know if everyone saw this, but I want to bring this up here. This is from Newsweek. I was surprised that Newsweek covered this, but they did. Newsweek said that Jill Stein on surge of support after Biden's debate disaster. And they have a picture of Jill there. So, Jill, what do you think happened there? I want to hear a little bit more about this. Like, you did have a surge in the polls. And from what I understand, there's been a surge in support as well for the campaign. What do you think prompted this? Do you think it was Biden's poor performance in the debate? Or do you think it was the fact that you held your own debate after theirs?
Yeah, we had more people tuning into our social media response to the debate than anything else we've ever had. So it was kind of like the horror of the debate. And it wasn't just Biden, I think it was also Trump. It's like, oh my God, these two rather pathetic human beings, really unfortunate, one kind of nursing home patient hiding, a genocider and, a genocider beneath his nursing home veneer. And then Trump's just psychopathic personality and lies, and people were tearing their hair out. Oh my God, the veil is fully off on the US election system. And, everybody's hair was on fire after that. And it should be. And in the follow-on, it's like the total focus is all about how dysfunctional is Joe Biden, and is he so dysfunctional that he doesn't even get that he has to drop out, and the Democratic Party is that dysfunctional as well, that they can't figure out, which way is up, and they're completely divided. There's nothing unifying them except money and their big donors. So, there is no there within the election system here of USA. And I think a lot of people were just reeling from the shock of having seen it up close and personal. And we had a bump in the polls of, 1 point something percent. Basically, we won the debate, we won the debate by not being there and, not needing to be there. Actually, they both lost the debate on their own terms, and people are looking around. And I think that hunger continues, and the Democrats continue in their desperation to try to silence us and, wipe us off the face of the ballot landscape by continuing. They have their army of lawyers. They're dragging us into court and trying to waste our money and spend down our resources. They have put job postings for a job manager, or maybe several of them, I don't know, managers of their volunteer infiltrators and spies that they're using to try to mess up our petition drives and our organizations. I'm sure they've been there doing this for quite a while. It's just that they weren't quite so obvious about it. And now the latest development is that they've decided to put a hold on the matching funds. Over a space of 9 minutes, that decision apparently got made, because we got one email from the Federal Election Commission saying that we qualified and the money was on its way. And then 9 minutes later, we got another letter that didn't have letterhead. It was like an email. It was as if someone had been given the word that, nope, you can't do it. It's got to stop. And this was coming from Treasury, which is, again, a Democratic organization. The FEC is allegedly bipartisan. It should be nonpartisan. It should be, totally rebooted with a very different structure, but they at least make a stab at being bipartisan. Not so good if you're not, if you're an independent. Bipartisan is not such a great thing, but the Democrats don't make any pretense, and suddenly from Treasury, apparently the word came down that they couldn't release the money.
Yeah, I'll get to the FEC part in just a second, but one of the things that I said, like when I was watching the debate, is, gee, I sure would have liked to have seen everyone else up on this stage. Like, I think all of you should have been on the stage with Biden and Trump. Yourself, RFK Jr., Dr. West, etc. All of you should have been on that stage. And I say that because the American people need to know that they have other options. And
exactly.
From a lot of people that I spoke to is that they weren't happy with either one. After that debate, they weren't happy with Biden. They weren't happy with Trump. And so I, have informed people that I know that there are other people running, but the vast majority of Americans that did tune into that debate obviously had no idea. But that's exactly the way that CNN wants it. That's the way that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party wants it. They don't want other people, other third party or independent candidates on that stage for people to realize, wait a minute, I have another option, especially considering a time where a lot of people just don't want Biden or Trump again.
Absolutely. It's not as if these are like unknown quantities. People have had lots of experience here. And, in fact, these aren't the debate candidates we need to hear from, because people know who they are and what they're about. It's like the other options. And to deny the American voters knowledge of who their other choices are and what their policy and positions are is really an incredible insult to democracy. So what else is new? That's what this bipartisan system is about. But it really is such a slap in the face. And it's such a disgusting pretense of being a democratic system. The League of Women Voters, quit managing the debates in 1988 when the DNC and the RNC, the committees of both parties, took over the debates and they started managing them. The League of Women Voters quit in disgust, saying that this was a fraud being perpetrated on the American voter, which is definitely true. And, it goes beyond the debates, but it's for sure, it's true of the debates. And we so deserve to have them. People should know that there is an alternative debate to which Trump and Biden were invited, but of course they're not going to go. But all the alternative candidates, were definitely invited as well. And this is the free and equal debate, which is going to be broadcast on social media. Scripps Network is carrying it. There are a couple other actual cable channels that are carrying it, but it's going to be on Rumble. People can go to freeandequal.org to find out. This is on Friday, the 12th, coming up in a couple days, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I really suggest people go and tune in. And I think any candidate that doesn't show up doesn't deserve your consideration. And it's not just Trump and Biden who are ducking. It's also RFK and Cornel West who are ducking. Not just this debate, but all debates. Neither of them will get on a debate stage. Neither of them will actually face critics and explain their policies and defend themselves. Neither of them will do it. And this is like time after time after time. This isn't just this one. It's every time. And in fact, both of them are coming to the event. It's at the Freedom Fest, which is in Las Vegas, Nevada. If I have it right, I think it's Las Vegas. And they're both going to be at the festival. They just can't make it. Well, actually, RFK is going to be there speaking solo immediately before the debate, but he won't participate in the debate.
Why does he get to speak solo? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he shouldn't. And why are the candidates, the dropouts, the, those who are the chickens, those who are either unable or unwilling to face competitors, why are they given a special out? I don't know, but they both, Cornel West is going to be like on a panel the prior day. He's saying his schedule doesn't allow him to be there the next day, which is, I may have it backwards. I forget whether he's going to be there on Thursday or Friday, but he's on a public panel, like a 3-person panel. So he has another slot where he's not debating. He's not appearing with other candidates. He's just going to be there on a panel discussing, I don't know what, but he gets his moment in the sun at the Freedom Fest, which is supposed to be about democracy. It's supposed to be about our civil liberties. So why are the candidates who are basically, shutting out democracy and refusing to participate in the democratic process of educating voters, why are they given a special, slot, their special moment in the sun in an uncompetitive way? RFK gets his, I don't know, like a half hour, all of his own to address the, the convention, which I believe is also televised. So it's ridiculous. But in my view, they're shooting themselves in the foot here. They're just really exposing their own timidity, their own, their own unwillingness to participate in the democratic process. I think it is so offensive to voters. Let them do it. Let them blow the whistle on themselves as being afraid, incompetent, who knows what it is, but they will not participate in the debate.
So is this the same organization that hosted the third party debate between where it was you, Claudia de la Cruz, and okay, so this is the same one. I think some of you guys may have seen that when I covered that on the show. There was a third party debate where there were third party candidates that were present. There were libertarian candidates. Claudia de la Cruz was also there from the Party of Socialism and Liberation. Jasmine Sherman was there. And I actually thought that was a really good debate. And I thought it was, I thought I learned a lot from it because you talked about your plans and your goals and what you want to actually accomplish and what we can do, not just necessarily what is wrong. So I really did like that debate, but I didn't see RFK or Dr. West present at that debate.
No, they never do. And there have been many other opportunities, where, there have been many mosques where, there was enormous interest in the anti-genocide candidates, and Cornel will also not participate in those. He will only go solo. It's really ridiculous.
This is very interesting, and that's unfortunate to hear because the reality is, like, you are running against other people. Like, you're not running by yourself, and it gives off these, I don't know, a certain type of arrogance to me, a certain type of arrogance vibe, because I sat there and I saw RFK Jr. have his own solo debate at the same time as the presidential debate. And so to me, it's like, if you can do that, then you can get on the debate stage and debate with the other third party, and independent candidates. It seemed like to me like there was all this fuss about, I want to be on the debate stage with Biden and Trump, but you're not willing to be on the debate stage with the other third party and independent candidates. So that comes across to me as some type of ego that I don't really like.
It is weird because we talk about the, the establishment candidates as being a political elite. They are a political elite, and they will not participate in a broader democratic process. So then you have other supposedly independent candidates who are their own political elites, and they want their own moment in the sun, and they won't actually participate in democracy themselves. It's very sad. And, thinking about what just went on in Europe, basically, in France, where how was the right, extreme right, the neo-fascists, how are they beaten back? Well, first of all, it's the neoliberals that create the neo-fascist movement. And we see that all over the world and in this country. So it's the neo-fascists who are actually it's the neoliberals with their programs of austerity, their privatization of public resources, their huge tax giveaways to the wealthy. That is what drives, the rise of the right wing. And we've certainly seen that in this country with the surge towards Trump after the Wall Street bailouts in 2008 and the crash of the economy and NAFTA and the offshoring of our jobs. There's been a surge to the right. Thank you, neoliberal Democrats, for that. So they have really contributed here to their own demise in the making. And then the flip side of that, it's when the left could get together around a bigger vision and not just their own, boosting their own numbers and their own thing, when they could actually collaborate and work together. That's how they beat the right. Now, what does that say to us right now? Because we too have a fascist problem. It's not just Democrats. It's not just Republicans. It is Democrats as well. We have a problem of rising fascism within both parties, very much. And how is the left going to respond to that? And it's so critical that we join forces. I mean, I think what happened in France really should be throwing down the gauntlet now for the left to do a rethink here, and for the parties and the candidates to be sitting down and thinking, well, how can we be strategic? How can we make the most of this very dangerous moment that we're in? How could we repeat the success that's going on in France right now?
Right. And I'll be talking about that later on tonight. But that coalition that came together in France should be a lesson to everybody here in the United States. And to be honest with you, Jill, I think part of the reason why we don't have that coalition in this country is because I think some of the people that say they want change don't really want change. I think some of these people, they're just talking behind a keyboard, but when push comes to shove, they'll be the ones that try to convince people to go against any type of change or any type of disruption. And with change, you do need to have some type of disruption. I hope everybody understands that. For all the people who want to bring up the civil rights movement and use that as an example, there was disruption during the civil rights movement, and that's how you bring about that change. So,
and I think we need both. I mean, we need disruption on all quarters. We need disruption in the street, and we also need disruption in the halls of power. And we have to challenge power as part of this. Otherwise, the social movements will continue to be sidelined. They have to get traction. They have to, make demands, as Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. That demand needs to be in the social movements, and it also needs to be very explicit in the halls of power. Who is running the show and who are they accountable to? And right now it's Wall Street and the war machine. And I think this calls for leadership, at all levels, leadership in the street, leadership in our communities. And for those who are running for office, what are you running for? Are you running to advance your own career, or are you running to actually help us pull back from the brink? Because we're at the brink right now. And it's not just, oh my God, Trump might be elected, or, oh my God, Biden might be elected. It's also that the climate is in complete meltdown. The wars are going completely off the charts right now. The escalation of conflict around the Middle East. RFK says he's not he's a peace candidate, except for Israel and Gaza. It's that same old, peace except for Palestine. RFK is a peace candidate, except for that thing, which I think is why he won't get on the stage with us, because we're going to point that out. I'm going to point that out. At any rate, we're in really desperate straits right now. And I don't think, not to mention that 500,000 or maybe 1 million people are going to die this month from starvation in Gaza. We need a united front to stand up to this. We should not be dividing, the power of the left right now. And you can't enforce that, but you would expect people to see the bigger picture here in the same way that they did in France. You have this green left coalition in France. And from what I understand, they also collaborated with, the
Communist Party.
Well, absolutely the Communist Party, but also with the neoliberals, who agreed that one or the other of them would drop out in three-way races, so that it would only be one of the two of them, whichever one was leading, they were going to consolidate behind in order to fight the right wing. So this was a very interesting collaboration where people were able to really put, broader social emergency ahead of their own partisan stuff. And we very badly, need to go back to the drawing boards here and do the same thing. It's also the climate. It's the climate. It's the wars on two fronts, which could be going nuclear, are definitely potentially at risk for that right now. And not to mention the economy, and 50% of people who rent their housing right now are at risk for eviction, basically, are really financially stressed, miss one or two paychecks and you're out. So we are really living crisis in virtually every dimension of our lives right now. We don't have time to play around, and there's no doubt about what direction we're going. Things are absolutely unraveling right now, and business as usual is not going to solve it for us. And we need a unified left.
I hear you. And I want to bring up this statement here from the FEC for those who were wondering. The FEC declared Jill Stein and her principal campaign committee eligible to receive public matching funds for her 2024 presidential campaign for the Green Party nomination. But to Jill's point, so a lot of us that saw this, we were very excited. Like, yeah, that's great for your party. It really is. But then, as you mentioned earlier, then you were told that they're not going to give the funds to you.
Well, they said that it will be delayed. So it is still possible that we'll get it. But we have urgent needs if we are going to continue our ballot drives. Right now, we are the only pro-worker, anti-war, anti-genocide, climate emergency campaign that is on the ballot right now for a majority of voters. And typically that has been the respected criterion for entry into debates. So by that criteria, because we are on the ballot for a majority of voters, we could, in theory, win the Electoral College at this point. We should be in all the debates. That's great. But in order to really be heard, in order not to be marginalized and sidelined, which they're going to try to do anyhow, and which they've been doing up until now, we need to be on the ballot in all states, or just about all states. And we're on track to do that. But now that we don't have money, we really need to crowdsource this campaign urgently. We are about to get on the ballot in Oklahoma, but we have to raise $35,000 in the next 5 days, which is absolutely doable, but we need people to throw down, to go to jillstein2024.com and make a contribution right now so that we can add yet another state. There are several more turn-ins happening this month. So you have to be on a schedule. You can't delay when you're doing ballot access. You have to be on the schedule. And so this was a very convenient way for the Democrats to basically throw a monkey wrench into our rising power here in this election. That's absolutely what's going on. And we badly need people to stand up and say, over my dead body, we are not going to shut down the one anti-genocide, anti-war, climate emergency, pro-worker campaign that's actually on the ballot already for a majority and on track to be on the ballot across the country for all voters.
And you're the one candidate too that's on the ballot in most states that also has a reparations platform, a real one, because the one that RFK Jr. has is not a reparations platform. I read that to the show. So just
I wasn't aware he even pretended to have a reparations platform, because he certainly doesn't talk reparations.
No, it's true. Now, one thing I want to show you as well, Jill, I'm not sure if you saw this, but obviously there's a lot of rumbling that's happening behind the scenes. Well, now it's kind of been made public, but it was happening behind the scenes within the Democratic Party, where politicians are calling for Joe Biden to step down. Mm-hmm. One of those politicians that came forward publicly is Seth Moulton. Now, this is hilarious. I'm going to show you this because for guys who are not aware, Seth Moulton, he's a representative from Massachusetts in Congress. He is not progressive. He is not he's a milquetoast establishment Democrat of all people. So he is not like a squad-like figure or anything like that. And he came forward publicly to call for Joe Biden to step down. I want to play this clip.
Behind the scenes, trying to talk to people in the White House, in the inner circle, trying to convey the concerns that myself and many of my colleagues and many of my constituents share, that he may not be the best choice to take on Donald Trump and ensure we win in November. But when those behind the scenes conversations didn't work, I decided it was time to go public with the concerns that so many of us Democrats share.
Yeah. And by the way,
so that's Seth Moulton. And there's another one. I don't know why Massachusetts always tends to be first. But it happens because my governor, Maura Healey, came out publicly asking Joe Biden to drop out. Again, she is not progressive. She's another establishment Democrat. I've had many criticisms about Maura Healey because she's definitely corporations first. But she has also made this public demand for Joe Biden to step down. And I want to get your opinion about that. There seems to be this split between Democrat politicians that want Joe Biden to drop out, and those that say, no, he is our candidate. Let's just stick with him. How do you feel about that?
Personally, I don't care, to tell you the truth. And if they substitute somebody else, it's going to be a younger Joe Biden who, may not have a movement disorder or whatever else is going on with Biden, cognitive decline. They might not have it, but they don't have what it takes. They do not have the public interest at heart. They're still going to be creatures of their big donors on Wall Street and the war machine. They're not for us. And I don't mind Biden being the face of the Democratic Party because it really is a mask off moment, for the Democratic Party. To me, it really doesn't matter. I regard the Democrats as every bit as dangerous as the Republicans. Malcolm X, said that it's basically, what is it? It's the fox that's more dangerous than the wolf, I think, something like that, because you can't see it coming. You can't see the danger coming, because of this pretense that they're your friend. They're really not your friend. They're not your friend whatsoever. And we got fascism to worry about, but we got fascism right now when a political party is throwing their competitors off the ballot. The Democrats are so clueless that they actually celebrate their announcement that they hired an army of lawyers to throw competitors off the ballot. How clueless is that? And then they publicly advertise for spies and infiltrators. It's just, it's pathetic that this is an anti-democratic party. It's not a Democratic Party. The name needs to be changed. We shouldn't even pretend. Who is behind Cop Cities? It's a Democratic city council in Atlanta. Who's behind the violence of the New York City cops? Mayor Adams, is, he's calling out the cops on the students and the protesters. Extremely violent, horrific. They're training with the IDF, the Israeli occupation forces, and they are shutting down our freedom of speech, our right to protest in an extremely brutal way, destroying academic freedom, how can we have a foreign policy when we can't even debate that foreign policy? And it's declared anti-Semitic for anyone to even raise questions about what Israel is doing, which is just so incredibly off the charts. I hope everyone will turn out on July 24th to, conduct a citizen's arrest, I hope, for Bibi Netanyahu. It's absolutely outrageous that this vicious war criminal is being invited to address Congress. But of course, Congress is, they're war criminals right along with him. They are providing him weapons and funding him. And, they tolerate no dissent within their own ranks either. It's, they're passing these laws that essentially, criminalize dissent about the war and that vilify the protesters against Zionist genocide being conducted by Zionists. Let me be clear. I am a Jew by, background, by upbringing. And when I was growing up, it was right after the Holocaust, after the Second World War. And it was a very big deal in the Jewish community. And I was attending, a Reform synagogue, going to religious school every week. It was a very big deal. How do we come to terms with genocide? How we came to terms with genocide was by resolving that genocide, is a crime against humanity for those who commit it and for those who are bystanders. You cannot be a bystander to genocide. So that means it wasn't just Jews that we were taught could not have genocide again. It wasn't anybody who could have genocide committed against them. And, it's very unfortunate that some people, are still blinded by this ethnic nationalism, which is extremely dangerous, and, have this really vicious mindset, which is essentially out to ethnically cleanse and kill as need be, Palestinians for occupying the land that the Zionists claim is their own. It's so important, I think, for there to be discussion about this, because many Jews were raised on the old information and the old history prior to the revelations when the Israeli National Archives were opened up. And it became very clear then at that point that Zionism from the get-go was a plan for ethnic cleansing and a plan of basically terrorizing Palestinians in order to drive them out. So this was long part of the plan, and everybody, Jews especially, but many Jews are on absolutely the right side of this issue and are helping to lead the charge against the genocide. But there are many who are anchored in this old and kind of obsolete understanding of the history of Zionism. So there needs to be dialogue here. There absolutely needs to be.
Right. Most Jewish people that I know do not agree with what's happening to the Palestinian people at all. And I think corporate media they're trying to do their best to bring forth the voices of those that do agree with it or are willing to, I guess, try to downplay what the IDF has done to the Palestinian people. And this goes back to before October 7th. Like, this did not start on October 7th. I started talking about this the very first year that I started this show. So the bombings, the attacks, like, this has been an ongoing issue. It's just that it became more popular after October 7th because that was, Hamas fighting back at Israel, right? So that made like world news, like international news, and Netanyahu tweeted out, "We are at war." But the Palestinian people have been occupied. They've been held captured. They've been given, dirty water. Israel controls all the resources. Like, these people have been treated like animals for decades. Like, this has gone on for a long time. And I think a lot of people, until October 7th, a lot of people had no idea this was going on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's been totally kind of kept under wraps, again, by collusion of mainstream media with our kind of U.S. political agenda, the agenda of empires, that we don't talk about this. And we don't look at what the apartheid state of Israel has been doing from even before it was founded. And massacres are not new. There have been massacres conducted from before the founding of the state of Israel. Witness, for example, the famous bombing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, which was undertaken by one of the, Israeli terror groups. I think it was the Irgun. I'm not sure if it was them, but it was one of these terror groups that then went on to become the government of Israel. And 100 people were killed, largely Europeans, as part of that bombing to basically clear the leadership to get Britain out, to get the UK out of controlling Palestine, and so that the Zionists could basically declare independence for the state of Israel. But that was just one example. There were some 500 villages, I think, that were destroyed or burned, or taken over, that took place even before the Nakba, from what I understand. So this has been absolutely devastating from the get-go. And there have been now so many assaults on Palestinians. This is like in the West Bank, and none of them go investigated or looked at. In fact, the Israeli occupation forces, they show up and they basically safeguard the settlers while they assault and murder and steal the homes of Palestinians in the West Bank. So it's just, it's just gut-wrenching to watch from day to day. Today there was a big bombing on a soccer game in Gaza. I don't know how many were killed, but there's footage out there, live footage of this happening, and it's like, how can this be allowed to continue? It's just unbelievable when all it takes is a phone call from Joe Biden. Joe Biden isn't going to make that phone call unless we force him to make that phone call. And until the U.S. begins to withhold weapons and support, it's very unlikely that Israel is going to comply. They're not going to comply unless, and I don't mean all of Israel, because a lot of Israel is now calling for a ceasefire as well, and return of the hostages, which can happen with a ceasefire. That's, been the most successful time for the return of hostages, when there were ceasefires. And Israelis are really now turning out in whole new numbers, calling for a ceasefire. But Netanyahu is not going to go quietly, and he's got nuclear weapons. So it's definitely going to take the U.S. using its clout and its influence here, which can happen very easily. It's as easy as a phone call. Or we could simply comply with U.S. law, which says that it is illegal to be giving weapons and military aid to any country that is interfering with the delivery of humanitarian aid, any country that is violating human rights, and any country that is also violating nuclear weapons treaties, which Israel is. It is in defiance of the Non-Proliferation Treaty by having nuclear weapons itself. So there are three major reasons of law why it is actually illegal to continue transferring weapons. But, once Israel actually moved ahead with its invasion of Rafah, which has been, just unbelievably devastating and horrific. Biden had said, well, maybe he would withhold weapons if Israel went ahead and invaded Rafah. What did he do? He rewarded Israel with another $18 billion worth of F-15 fighter jets at taxpayer expense. It's just jaw-dropping what is happening here. And it's not just horrible for Palestinians, it's also horrible for Israelis, because it's really mobilizing their neighbors against them, who have a whole lot of, weapons and armed forces between Hezbollah. Jordan is getting very pissed off. People are, getting out in large rallies calling for the peace treaty with Israel to be torn to shreds. And Iran could easily be dragged into this, which is what Israel's really trying to do. They're kind of going for a wider war here because Netanyahu does not want this to end. So this is on us. This is on us. And I keep encouraging people to make this a reason to get on the ballot, so that we have an anti-genocide, anti-war campaign, which is on the ballot for every voter. That is going to really, be a huge shot across the bow of the Democrats and Biden, that we have the power, we have the numbers, we just need that political traction.
That's right, because both Donald Trump and Joe Biden support the war. Everyone has to understand that. Some people seem to have some type of misconception earlier on that because Donald Trump said that he would end it, but then obviously during the debate, he made that very clear what he meant about ending it. So I don't know if people just seem to have forgotten, because he did make it very clear, like during his presidency. Remember, he's the one that moved the Capitol. That happened under his presidency. So I think people just need to definitely vote your conscience. Like, vote your conscience, and don't buy into the fear mongering of, if you vote third party or independent, we're going to get Donald Trump. Look, the reality is, and this is what I honestly believe, even if you weren't in this race, let's say you, RFK, Dr. West, none of you were in this race, I still think that Joe Biden would have this problem. I still think it would be this close between the two, because people are just so angry, and not just Gaza, but also because of economic reasons, where people are still dealing with inflation. The grocery prices are still incredibly high from what I've seen, and people just aren't given a living wage. There's been a number of companies that have laid off hundreds of workers. As much as Joe Biden brags about his job numbers, a lot of people are being laid off. The homeless rate has increased by 25% under his presidency. And these are the things, of course, he's not going to tell you, because these aren't selling points. It doesn't make you want to go and vote for him. But I do have a question for you, Jill, about Biden. His cognitive ability. You're a medical doctor. Obviously, you would have to give him a full examination. But based on your observation, what do you think could be possibly happening to President Biden?
So there are many causes of cognitive decline. But I think what we have seen with, the common, garden variety causes of cognitive decline, include Alzheimer's disease. They also include strokes. Just having vascular disease in your brain can cause kind of subclinical stroke. So you don't actually see someone getting paralyzed, but they're losing their ability to, to think well, to remember, their cognitive capacity just goes downhill. And we've seen him really decline. We've also seen him kind of develop this movement disorder. He doesn't walk very well, and he's kind of slow and halting. His facial expressions are also very muted now. That's kind of a characteristic of Parkinson's disease. You can never say, without examining and then doing a bunch of tests and brain scans and stuff like that, you can never say what the cause is, but it's clear just from being an observant human being, it's clear that he is on a downhill course, a very definitive downhill course. And his ability to think clearly and remember things and communicate is highly variable. Sometimes he can do it and many times he can't. And you don't want your president to not be awake when they get the call in the middle of the night that there's some potential nuclear emergency or something. What are they going to do? You don't want someone who only operates, 9 to 5. And Biden even said the other day that he had to limit his work hours. He had to start, giving himself evenings off. You can't have a president that's not 24/7, So he has said as much himself. And I think his kind of his dysfunction around this decision is another indication that he's just not up to the job. He really cannot say why he should stay in the job or why he would be reliable and qualified in the job. He just says, I have to give it my all. Well, that's not what that's not the yardstick for president. It's not like having done a college try. It's one should be very worried about the very taxing circumstances that a president has to meet. And if one was in full possession of their faculties, they would be thinking long and hard about Biden's track record and what that implies going forward. There's no way he's capable of this job. So he shouldn't be in it. But, it's clear he probably hasn't been in it for quite a while, and that it's these unaccountable appointments who are making decisions for him. And they're every bit as bad as he is. they will be there really no matter who the Democrat is. So I don't really think that things are going to somehow improve suddenly because somebody else is going to be, occupying that position. I think we all need to look at this election like our lives are on the line. It's not just democracy that's on the line, it's our lives are really on the line. And we really need to stand up and fight for a system change here that can put everyday people in charge instead of the war machine and Wall Street and big donors who are basically running the show. And your lesser evil here, good luck figuring out which one is the lesser evil. And if you can figure it out, it's not as though the lesser evil is going to save us. The politics of fear has delivered everything we were afraid of. You can't simply absent yourself from the communications, from the dialogue, and think that that's going to work. Like Frederick Douglass says, power concedes nothing without a demand. We have to be in this discussion, making the demand for what it is that we need. We need a $25 an hour living wage. We need federal rent control. We need a common floor for K through 12 schools across the country. It shouldn't depend on how expensive the housing is in your community. Schools should be equitably funded across the board. We need to make public higher education free and abolish student debt. We need to deal with the climate crisis. Good God. It was 128 degrees in Death Valley a day or two ago, and we're not at the end of this. We've just gotten started here. 1,400 people died in Mecca a couple of weeks ago on their pilgrimage from just heat exposure. The monkeys are falling from the trees in the Yucatan. We are not in a world that's going to last very long, left to the Democrats and Republicans. We need an America and a world that's working for all of us, not working just for the big donors who are funding these parties. We need to get outside of the duopoly. We need to break the duopoly, not in any old way like RFK would do. We need to break the duopoly with our values and our principles and with a real sense of democracy. That's how we need to go forward. And that's really the only hope. So I think, we need to go for broke here. We need to really stand up for what it is that we need and not pretend that lesser evilism is going to somehow solve this problem. Our lives are on the line. We need to forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because in fact they do. We can fix this. There are real solutions here, which are as simple as us standing up and just saying no to the politicians and the pundits who are trying to talk you out of your values, and your vote. They don't own your vote. You own your vote. Politicians have to earn your vote, and they haven't. And don't pretend that they have, because they're just trying to suck you into more of the same. We can't go on this way. We really need to stand up and insist on a world that's going to work for us. And I encourage people to go to JillStein2024.com and let's make this happen. This is it. It's showtime, people.
All right, Jill, thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Sabby. Great talking as always. Have a good rest of your show. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Dr. Jill Stein. Again, I hope you got some more information there about her campaign. The FEC information, particularly about the funds, that's especially important for third parties. So hopefully they do get the funds that they need, because that would be a big deal for the Green Party. All right, guys, let's go to some of the comments. We'll shout out patrons and then we'll go into tonight's stories. We have a lot to discuss tonight. I am going to do a call-in show after the show. So don't miss that. I'm pretty sure there's a lot to say. I will not be able to do call-in next week because next week, I'm going to be traveling. I'll explain that later on. But yeah, let's go ahead and go to some of the comments here. Mark says, I hear Shama suggest that the various fragments of the left should start to pull together. I've been saying this since 2011. Occupy. What does Dr. Jill Stein think about doing this? Won't it be essential? Oh, yeah. So she did talk about that, similar to what just happened in France. Les says, despite the guest and the host, Aaron did exceptionally well. Yes, he did. Oh, my God. That was a good conversation. I think that was the first time I've seen Aaron Mate angry. It's a good conversation, though. We'll get into that. Black Freud said RFK equals fourth string Kennedy. That is, oh my God, that's brutal, Black Freud. The jokes are already starting. Good grief. Thank you for the super chat, Resurrects. Not buying the climate narrative. Operation Popeye shows how the weather was manipulated. That is interesting. I'll have to look into that. Thank you, Marcus, for the super chat. 5 for the doggo. Oh, for the pup in the back. Pup. Thank you for the super chat, David. I wonder if any celebs would be willing to endorse Jill, actors, sports players. The U.S., unfortunately, being celeb obsessed makes that not a bad plan. Maybe someone like Susan Sarandon might be willing to do that. I'm not sure, though. I don't know if has she endorsed anyone yet? I don't know. And she may not endorse anyone. It's just the reality. But I could see maybe someone like Susan Sarandon doing that. Thank you for the super chat, Marcus. Why won't Jill Stein do the Jimmy Dore show? Her managers have been dodging him. I do not know, honey. I don't work for the campaign. Can't help you with that one. Thank you, Tim. Hey, Sabby, has Jill stated her stance on reparations for freedmen? Yes. So we've talked about that on here multiple times. Like, she's been on here multiple times and we've talked about it multiple times. The best thing I can tell you to do is to read it on her website. It's very extensive. So just if you go to her website and you look at like her plans, there's a whole section for that. So I recommend that. And again, one of the things that we did talk about, which is also on the website, is cash payment. Thank you for the super chat, Marcus. Cup of Joy. Oh, at Cup of Joy. Lefties call Jimmy Dore a right winger and righties call him left. That only happens when one tells the truth. I'm not sure why this is a part of the discussion. Just seriously. I'm not sure why this was sent. Thank you. I'm not sure why that was sent as a super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Jojo. Jill gives me hope, but anytime I bring her up as an option to people, they throw Project 2025 in my face. The fear mongering is unfortunately doing its job. Project 2025, which I discussed last week, is a part of the Heritage Foundation, the same Heritage Foundation where Obama pretty much got Obamacare from. So the Heritage Foundation has been known to work with both parties. I would also say Project 25 is not any different from Project 2024. You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden you're hearing about this now. Why weren't they talking about Project 2024 and all this other stuff? So I'm not to say that Project 25 is good. It's not a good thing. Obviously, there's a lot of criticism about it. Maybe me and JB can talk about that more on Thursday, but it's not what they're making it out to be. That's just an excuse for you not to vote, for the Democratic Party. Vote with your conscience, people. Thank you, Janice. Census bases poverty line on 1963 food prices. Would Jill Stein order census to updated to today's prices info and include house and transportation costs? I can check on that for you, Janice. That's a good question. And thank you, Janine. Tell Jill this we need is a needed campaign commercial. A needed campaign commercial. I think there is an ad. I thought I saw an ad on Twitter, but yes, I can tell that too. But I totally hear you. Totally hear you. All right. Let's go ahead for the Rockfin and then we'll go to Patreon. Yeah. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Dave. Thank you, Sabs, for this interview. You are welcome. Thank you, Hemp. If the Fed and Department of Defense were audited, we'd get back over $30 trillion. If left and right united on that, we'd still have $15 trillion for reparations, Gaza, and the homeless. Also, has Jill Stein ever debated Diane Sayre on nuclear energy? Not that I know of. I can check with that. But thank you for that. Okay. All right, guys, if you are new and you're just popping into this piece, don't forget to smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Thank you so much. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for keeping all the lights on around me. And man, it is a hot one today. I don't know what the weather is like where you guys are, but it is so humid. So humid. I feel like one big giant frizz ball over here. A frizzy ball. Thank you to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators, there's Sabsters. Don't forget, there's also Sabbies. They're in the house as well. What? And of course, don't forget about members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker as well. Thank you guys so much. What? Yeah, I know. Brian said Florida is horrible. It's so muggy, right? Like, ugh, it's so huggy. Jesus Christ. Ugh. Yeah, JB says, yeah, Sabs, we can totally go over Project 2025 details. Yeah, let's do that on Thursday. Just tell people what it's all biz out. Okay, thank you for the Rumble rant. Let's go ahead and show that one as well. Thank you, Mahatamums. That was a great interview with Jill Stein. Thanks, Sabby. You are welcome. And thank you. God damn. Sandra said it's 105 here in Southern Oregon. Jesus Christ. I don't know how you guys do it, man. And like, I like to go outside. I like to get some sunshine, you know. I'm like Sheryl Crow. I want to soak up the sun. But it's the humidity. It's the humidity that gets me. And I just get feeling sticky and frizzy and ugh. Maybe I would fare well in like Arizona. Maybe dry heat would be best for me. I don't know. Anyhow, what else are we going to talk about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go ahead and share that thumbnail. I also have a bonus story to discuss tonight as well. Tonight, we are discussing Aaron Mate goes off, literally goes all the way off. That gentleman next to Aaron Mate definitely got a piece of his mind. Interesting panel debate there on Piers Morgan's show. This is probably one of the most recent Israel updates based on the information that was announced yesterday by Haaretz. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to tell you why this panel was taking place and what all the fuss is about. We're also going to discuss Joe Biden fumbles on Morning Joe and radio station. So there's a couple of things that have happened from Joe Biden call-in appearances. We're going to break that down. We're also going to discuss the France leftist win. We're going to talk about how they were able to build a left coalition to defeat the right wing in France. And not just the right wing, but also Macron, because Macron is gone. Or Macron will be gone in a second, because I'll explain to you. We'll break that down later on. Of course, Jill Stein was just here. And I also have a bonus story for you. We're going to talk about Karine Jean-Pierre and also the Black church and what they're doing to continue to push Joe Biden. We're going to talk about the Black misleadership class. We haven't had this discussion in a while. So that is our bonus story. We're going to get into all of that jazz. So let's keep going, shall we? Okay. Joe Biden called into Morning Joe. I don't know if this was his idea. I'm not sure if this was Morning Joe's idea. But what we do know is that Mika and Joe are friends with Joe Biden. They have been very public about that. So it's not a secret. But anyway, for whatever reason, they seem to think it was a good idea for Joe Biden to call into Morning Joe. I don't think that this is something that helped Joe Biden's campaign. We want to give a shout out here to Philip Lewis because he was the one that announced this on Twitter. President Joe Biden called into MSNBC's Morning Joe this morning. Oh, God. Here is segment 1. We're going to start right about here at 4:33, and then we'll pop into segment 2. Listen to this.
Said there are a lot of people of goodwill who love you, who believe you did a great job in your first term, who are still concerned. Yesterday, the topic came up of the Stephanopoulos interview, where you were asked the question, how would you feel if Donald Trump beat you? How would you feel after you lost? And you said, well, as long as I did the best I could do, that's the most important thing. That's caused Democrats concern, who believe that losing is not an option. What would you say to those who are concerned by that answer?
It's not an option, and I've not lost. I haven't lost. I beat him last time. I'll beat him this time. And this is a guy who, look, we talk about debates. Look at his performance at debates. He lied over, Trump has 50 lies. I mean, look, this is a guy who says 10% of the universe. I don't want to get into it. He's just a liar.
I don't know what that was right there. Obviously, it looked like he was rumbling, or he was starting to rant. You'll hear this later on. It's obvious that he's reading from a script or something, because you're going to hear the papers like rumbling in the background. But one thing I want to add there is that, yep, Donald Trump told a lot of lies. Joe Biden also told lies, not as many as Donald Trump did. But I think what Joe Biden is not understanding or not really comprehending is that even through all of those lies, Trump knew what he was saying. And it was very obvious to the American people that Joe Biden did not seem to understand what he was saying. It's just, let's go on.
And he hadn't done a damn thing since the debate. He's been riding around in a golf cart for 10 days, or down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friend. I'm not running because of these guys, Joe. I'm running because, and you know me well enough to know this from the very beginning, I ran because I never bought on to the trickle-down economic theory. I never bought into the notion that we have to walk away from the rest of the world and cave to Putin or anybody else. I've never believed any of that. And I'm confident that's where the American people are. So what I did was I went out and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any slippage at all. And with the average voter, I don't care what the millionaires think. And by the way, 97% of all the people who contribute to us are people making under 200, contribute under $200. I think we have the largest contingent ever in history. I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. And
So you guys see this? He said, I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. So that's another lie. And like Maura and Joe, I said Maura, good grief. Think about Maura Healey. Mika and Joe don't even correct him on that. Like, he called into Morning Joe and lied on Morning Joe. And look at the expression on their face. Look at Mika's facial expression. Look at Joe's facial expression. And I bet in the back of their minds, they're thinking, ooh, maybe this was not a good idea after all.
I want their support, but that's not the reason I'm running. I'm not running about what they think and what they care about. And by the way, you don't see a whole hell of a lot of them flocking to Trump. You don't see a whole lot of CEOs flocking to Trump. You don't see any, you see the major economists out there talking about what I have been able to do. I don't hear anybody talking about his economic plan likely to bring America around.
So he says you don't see a lot of the CEOs flocking to Trump. That's Joe Biden admitting to you that he's in the back pocket of CEOs, which I've already known that. I think a lot of you have known that. But now for people who may not be aware of how electoral politics works and the money that's behind all of it, and now they will know that he's in the back pocket of CEOs. Keep going, Joe.
Keep America first. And by the way, here's Trump talking about all that he's done and Trump and his debate night. He's a pathological liar. He lied about Roe. He refused to accept the outcome of the election. He refused to condemn January 6th. And he says, they claim he spoke with Putin before he invaded. What the hell are we doing, Joe? What are we doing? This is bizarre.
Yeah. It's a good question. I have a few questions, Mr. President, and I know you know where.
So speaking to Vladimir Putin before the invasion is not a crime. That doesn't mean that Donald Trump told Vladimir Putin to invade, So there's that.
I stand, and yet I have a few questions. First, it's very simple. How can you assure the American people that you won't have another night like the one you did in Atlanta?
Look at my career. I've not had many of those nights. It was a terrible night. And I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on fate's not going to intervene on your way to go to, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea I'm too old. Created over 15 million jobs, 21 million insured for the ACA, beat Big Pharma, relieved student debts for 5 million people, first black woman in the court. So I think.
Here we go with the first black woman again. So you guys see what's happening here. So first and foremost, just because you did those things doesn't mean you're not experiencing cognitive decline. As I told you guys before, you can have good days and you can have bad days. And also, we don't know who was running things behind the scenes. We don't know who was helping you with those things, right? So there's that as well. But he's going back to the past, and we're talking about what is happening right now, presently at this point in time. And this is, again, where Mika and Joe are not going to push back on that. Because again, they're friends with, and this is a conflict of interest, I think, because Mika and Joe, they are friends with Joe Biden. They have acknowledged this publicly. So obviously, Mika and Joe are not going to be, they're not going to really press Joe too much. They're not going to come at him the way that I think a lot of us would, right? So there is bias here. This interview should have happened. Honestly, this interview shouldn't take place on Fox News, MSNBC, or CNN. It should happen in a neutral setting with people who are not a part of either party. Because obviously, if you're a part of the Republican Party, you're going to be harsher on Joe. If you're part of the Democratic Party, you're not going to be as harsh on him. And then add the fact that you're friends with him. So there's that too. It's pretty obvious.
I had a significant run, and that's how I'd measure me. Measure me what I've done. And by the way, in terms of my neurological capacity, I had a physical, a neurological physical as well in February. It's released. I released all my records, all of them. And I have a neurological test every single day.
There he goes with that again. He has a neurological test every single day. So let me just say something, folks. Doctors have been known to lie. Doctors have been known to lie and to put the information on those records because obviously the president of the United States does have to have a physical, but they've been known to, come on, get out of here. This is a nightmare, a complete nightmare.
I sitting behind this desk and making these decisions. You know it. Both of you know it. They know it. I'm not bad at what I do. And now, it doesn't mean I never make a mistake. I do. But I'm making those decisions.
Mr. President, if anybody in my family had a night like that, like if my Joe had a night like that, or my kids or anybody, I'd probably want to do some sort of workup and medical workup and make sure he's okay. Have you been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinson's or anything like that that might explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences?
Notice that she said pre-Parkinson's, right? So this is similar to what Dr. Jill Stein mentioned.
Look, I was feeling so badly before the debate. When I came back, they tested me for, I thought maybe I had COVID, maybe there was something wrong. I had an infection or something. They tested me, they gave me those tests, I was clear. So, but look, I had a bad night. But the fact of the matter is, look at what I'm doing. I mean, let me put it this way. If there was something that was wrong that night, it's not like it comes and that's one night and it goes away. That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, been testing everywhere I go, going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out.
So that's part one. Jesus Christ. Let's go to part two. This gets even crazier.
That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, been testing everywhere I go, going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out till 2 o'clock in the morning. That very night, it drives me nuts, people talking about this. That very night, I was talking to large crowds. Look at the crowds we've gathered everywhere from Atlanta to North Carolina to Pennsylvania. And look at the enthusiasm. But it was right after. And where the hell's Trump been? What has Trump said or done?
So the problem with that remark from Joe Biden when he said, "Where has Trump been?" Trump's not president of the United States. You are. Okay. So that's part of the problem with this conversation. Trump already served his presidential term. Yes, he's running for office again, but he's not the current president. Obviously, there is going to be much more criticism towards the current president, especially when the economy is not good. That's just how it goes. Just like we had criticism during Trump's presidency, but Trump is not in office right now. So bringing up these statements saying, what's Trump been doing? Where was he at? What was he around? He's not in office.
Except deny and lie about what he's for.
Okay, so you have repeatedly said that all of these people and entities are wrong. And let me go through them. The New York Times editorial board, The Economist, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Boston Globe, Jerry Nadler, Seth Moulton. Let me go to Julian Castro, Tim Ryan, David Axelrod, David Remnick, Richard Haas. Yeah, I know.
So remember, guys, David Axelrod was a part of the Obama administration. So Joe Biden's laughing because obviously he knows who David Axelrod is. But that's a number of people that are saying that he should step down. And also Crypt Keeper himself. What's the guy's name? Eric, you know who I'm talking about. The Crypt Keeper guy, he comes forward every now and then and tells people that we can't go too far left. And also Trump is really dangerous. He was the one that said Bernie was evil. It's like I can see his face, but I can't remember his James Carville. Yes, even the Crypt Keeper, James Carville, has spoken out and said that Joe Biden should step down. I mean, she wasn't finished there. He interrupted. She wasn't finished naming all the people.
Which one you're responding to there, Zeke Emanuel, but they are saying that you should step aside. So what is your plan of attack moving forward? These are pretty big names.
Is to go out and keep doing their big names, but I don't care what those big names think. They're wrong in 2020. They're wrong in 2022 about the red wave.
They weren't wrong in 2020. So here's something again where Mika and Joe don't push back on. They may have been wrong about the red wave in 2022, but they weren't wrong in 2020. Those people were supporting Joe Biden in 2020. They were like, yeah, Joe Biden, he's going to be the one to do this. Carville was the one that was telling everybody Bernie Sanders is too far left and too far radical. Joe Biden is our guy. They stood behind Joe Biden in 2020. So I don't know what he's talking about there.
They're wrong in 2024. And come out with me. Watch people react. You make a judgment. You make a judgment. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm going to have all these foreign leaders here. I've been in contact with the new British Prime Minister. Anyway, look, the country, the rest of the world is looking. Our allies are looking for U.S. leadership. Who else do you think could step in here and do this? I expanded NATO. I solidified NATO. Ask your brother about it.
That part right there. Mr. I expanded NATO. Ask your brother about it. Then he goes on to say in Poland. So he's telling Mika, ask your brother about this because I expanded NATO. Again, that is not a bragging point. And this is where I think the generation gap comes in. Younger voters don't particularly applaud this expansion of NATO because they know what that means. That means more war. That means more aggression towards Russia. Obviously, Russia is going to be very upset about that if you continue to move closer and closer to its borders. This is how we got here with the Russia and Ukraine war. So he bragged about this in the interview with George Stephanopoulos, and he's bragging about this again. You cannot go around telling people that, look at what I've done. I've expanded NATO. That's not a winning position anymore. This is not 2003. This is something I've noticed from the Obama coalition, Biden and all of them that were part of the Obama administration. They don't understand. The world has changed. The country has changed. This, touting all these wars and I'm controlling the world and I'm all around here and I'm doing all these things with the different countries. That is not a selling point anymore.
Poland. I made sure that we're in a position where we have a coalition of people of the nations around the world to deal with China, with Russia, with everything that's going on in the world. We're making real progress. The Biden plan, which got in Israel for the Gaza Strip, is something that was adopted by the UN Security Council. Whether it comes to fruition, it's awful close. We'll see.
The Biden plan for the Gaza Strip. Guys, more kids were killed at a school today. Those kids were just playing football. What plan? So I don't know. It sounds like he may have run off script here because, like I said, it's obvious he's probably reading from a piece of paper, but it seems like he's going off script a little bit here.
G7's
Okay.
But look,
Yep.
I'm not going to explain any more about what I should or shouldn't do. I am running. And if you want to stop me,
I wanted to ask you, it's so interesting. You talked about how, you were supposed to lose in 2020. You won. There's supposed to be a huge wave in 2022. There wasn't. In 2023, Republicans were supposed to win. They didn't. You could say the same thing about France. Le Pen was supposed to win in 2 years ago. She ended up getting crushed. Her party, her far-right nationalist extreme party was supposed to win yesterday. They ended up getting crushed. I'm curious, what message do you take from the French elections and the British elections? Because we keep hearing about the rise of far-right nationalist extremism in Europe. But I've got to say, it looks like this past week has been the worst week for far-right nationalists between Britain and France. I'm wondering what you say about that and what message you take to NATO allies this week.
So first and foremost, when he brings up those two countries, it's important that people understand that people in those countries have health care. People in those countries have benefits that Americans don't have. So this is another thing. When I talked about the French protests, and we'll get to France later on in the show, last year when I was covering all the protests that were happening in France and they were going all out and bam, 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 like they were like, F you, Macron, because he increased the retirement age. People have to understand, like when everybody in the country has health care, when everyone in the country has paid leave and paid family, more so paid family leave, everyone has paid vacation, everyone can get out into the streets like that. That's the big difference. People have to understand that they have benefits that we don't have. We have people working jobs here in the United States and they don't even offer any type of health insurance. So those aren't the best examples.
look, Joe, let's get something clear about 20 and 24. Not only were they wrong, I said they were wrong beforehand. I said we were going to win and how we were going to win. I didn't pretend about it. It wasn't like, oh my God, I was surprised. I was not surprised. I predicted it. I knew what we were doing. Number one. Number two, you may remember, I was one of the few people out there publicly saying before the 2022 election, there will be no red wave. There will be no red wave. Because I've been all over the country. I didn't believe it at all. And then in 2023, the key elections, I went into those races. Not every one of them, but a lot of them. And I said we were going to win. Look, we won those. So, Joe, it wasn't just that it didn't happen. I was predicting beforehand it would not happen. Because I've got a pretty good political instinct and eye. And here's the deal. It's not going to happen here this time around. The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance, number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch.
So you heard what he said there about having the black support. So black people, listen up. Hear what he just said? They tell me I don't have the black support. Watch. You know why he can say that? because he knows that he doesn't have to do anything for us. The Democratic Party doesn't have to do anything for the Black vote. They don't have to give Black people any type of concessions. He knows that regardless, Black people are still going to support the Democratic Party. Isn't that a damn shame? Notice how proudful he said it. No humility whatsoever. Even though the polls show that he is losing support among Black voters. Very cocky. You can hear the ego in his voice. He just knows he just got us. How did we get into this situation? We got into this situation because we were convinced for years that we have to support the Democratic Party because the Republican Party is going to screw things over for us. They're going to implement laws that are going to hurt the African American community. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party isn't trying to help the African American community. They're trying not to implement any type of repair. None of that. So Joe Biden, that's why he sounds very cocky. You don't hear him say that about any other group of people. You don't hear him say that about Latino voters. You don't hear him say that about Asian American voters. It's just, oh, I know I just got them. Watch. That pisses me off.
I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me.
So that's where it's a mask off moment for Joe Biden, not for us that follow politics heavily. But here is Joe Biden admitting to the American people that the elites are the ones that are calling the shots, which is what I've been saying for years. You know what else was interesting about that comment? He says to Mika and Joe, the elites, oh, but not you guys, because he knows that they're elite too. Everybody catch that? Yeah, they're a part of the same type of bubble. These people are rich. And yes, the elites do call the shots, but Joe Biden takes money from these corporations. He takes money from these people who own these corporations. He's very much bought and captured. Now, he keeps saying the elites, but he is taking the most money from AIPAC out of any politician going all the way back to 1990. Joe Biden has received the most money from the Israeli lobby. So he is still in their back pocket. That is a lie. But the mask off moment is that he tells the American people publicly who's really running things.
Go ahead, announce the president. Challenge me at the convention. You know, on Europe, the polls are wrong in France. They're also right. There's no right wave or tide here in America either. By the way, in case you're wondering whether there is one, have you ever seen Trump run away so fast from what he's for? You know he's going to do it anyway, but he's such a liar. This guy everybody knows what they're planning to do. And now he's saying, no. This guy is going to rip away at a woman's right to choose in a permanent way. This guy is going to make sure that he exacts revenge. This guy's going to destroy democracy. This guy's going to give a blank check to the Supreme Court.
Who are we giving blank checks to? So Joe Biden is telling you that Donald Trump is going to take away women's rights. Has Donald Trump ever said that? And I keep bringing this up. Donald Trump has said that it belongs in the states. He doesn't agree that it belongs on the federal level, but he's been asked this multiple times. And I've never heard Donald Trump say that he was going to outlaw abortion, nationally or anything like that. But Joe Biden continues to repeat that rhetoric. Donald Trump could have done that when he was president. So that is one piece I do push back on about Donald Trump. However, that being said, I think that this is the fear mongering that the Democratic Party is continuing to use to try to get the voters to come out.
Use its past, the 2025 agenda, this guy's extremely dangerous. But you notice he doesn't speak up for what he really is for. He's all of a sudden realizing, oh my God, nobody's for what I'm for. But anyway, look, and again, think of the things he lied about. He talked about he gave the largest tax cut in history. Yeah, he gave the largest tax cut in history to millionaires and billionaires. He said that he's going to, the 10% universal tax proposal is not going to drive prices higher. Every major economist in the world is saying it's going to drive an average $2,500 per person.
So he's talking about Donald Trump driving prices high, but right now we have inflation, and we've had inflation. I'm trying to remember when we didn't have it, but we've had inflation for most of Joe Biden's presidency. So right now, again, that's not a bragging point. You can't sit up here and say, look, let's talk about the economy. I told you guys before, and I'm going to keep it real. I do not like Donald Trump. I don't like Joe Biden, but the economy for me was better under Donald Trump. That's just me looking at my bank account. That's me looking at the numbers when I go to the store. That's me looking at the gas pump. And no, Pete Buttigieg, not all of us can afford to buy an electric vehicle to solve that problem. I don't know about you guys, but I can't afford to buy a new car. So there's that. So with the economy, that's where I think if Donald Trump beats Joe Biden, it is going to be on the economy. That's the only thing I can think of.
Only jobs we created for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs and bounce back from COVID. Give me a break. That's what he said at the convention. At the debate. Everything he said. He said, he largely fixed COVID. You kidding me? And what happened? Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything except me and the folks out there in the local, race. He said, I did nothing to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In fact, he said, I think I encouraged Russia from going. I think he encouraged Russia going in. I'm reading from the list of lies. First of all, he was made up quotes, suckers and losers. I was with it. He called the Americans in the cemeteries from World War I suckers and losers.
Pause for a second. Thank you for mentioning that, Aiden. Because at first, when I was listening to this conversation and I heard the page rumble, at first I thought maybe that was Mika and Joe, because they had papers on their desk here, right? On the table. They had papers there. But when it got to this part, notice that you can see Mika and Joe clear as day, and they're not touching any papers, which shows you that Joe Biden was reading notes. And why doesn't Joe Biden have this interview via video? Not to say you can't call into a show, you can, but considering what just happened, it does not look good. It's not a good look. LPA Film said, damn script. Yeah, you can tell he's reading something, right? You can kind of tell when he goes off script. So yeah, quite a doozy. That was his appearance on Morning Joe, but something else happened too. And this one is cray. And I hope you guys are ready for this one. Apparently, Joe Biden also made a radio appearance at a Philadelphia radio show. Now, the appearance is not so much the problem, although we can get into that too if you wanted to. But a big part of the problem is what one of those radio hosts revealed on CNN about the interview. And this is enough to send off flags for people in the Biden administration, because I don't think they were expecting this to happen. You got to see this. Philadelphia radio show. Joe Biden called in. CNN brought those two hosts onto CNN, basically, I guess, to try to help Joe Biden in some way, shape, or form. But it backfired, fam. Listen to this.
Before the president sat down with George Stephanopoulos, he spoke with two black radio hosts in the battleground states of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Both are with me now. Earl Ingram is the host of the Earl Ingram Show in Milwaukee, and Andrea Lawful Sanders is the host of The Source on WURD in Philadelphia. Welcome to you both. Congratulations on such a big week. And Earl, let me start with you. And I'm going to play here the president's answer to your question about his performance in the debate. Here's what he told you.
I had a bad night. And the fact of the matter is that, I screwed up. I made a mistake. And but I learned from my father, when you get knocked down, just get back up. Get back up.
Did you hear the version of the president, similar to one we saw at the debate, that alarmed so many Democrats? Gauge for me what your exchange was with the president.
Well, you're talking about a person, myself, who has followed the president for over 45 years. I've watched him from a very when I was a very young man to where he is now. Clearly, not just the president, but any person over a 45-year period there's going to be some changes to who they were, as there is with me. I'm not surprised that Joe Biden is not who he was 45 years ago. I am a little surprised that the Joe Biden of today is different from the Joe Biden of 2 years ago, of even a year ago.
How so?
Well, clearly, cognitively, anybody who hears him and knows of him and who he has been will detect that there are some differences in his speech. People attribute that constantly to the fact that he has a speech impediment. He's always had a speech impediment his entire life, but people hadn't been talking about the fact that he has a speech impediment until, the last few weeks. And clearly there's something that is different about President Joe Biden.
Yeah. He says that he.
So there you go. But I will debunk something here. He said that people haven't been talking about the speech impediment until recently. That's actually not true. People were talking about that during the 2020 Democrat primary debates. People made criticism there, too, about the speech impediment.
Will not be taking or releasing a cognitive test. Andrea, let me ask you here about your interviews and something. I listened to both of them, and there's something that's similar here. You each you asked 4 questions, and maybe that's what you were allowed to ask by the campaign or the White House. But they were essentially the same questions, both interviews, about accomplishments, progress in your respective state, what's at stake in the election, what he has to say about his debate performance, and what he would say to voters who think their vote doesn't matter or might sit this election out. Were those questions given to you by the White House, or or the campaign, or did you have to submit questions ahead of this interview?
Here it is, folks. Now he's speaking to her right here in Philadelphia. Listen to what she says.
The questions were sent to me for approval. I approved of them.
Okay, so the White House sent the questions to you ahead of the interview?
Yes.
Okay.
I got several questions, 8 of them, and the 4 that were chosen were the ones that I approved.
Okay.
Everybody heard that. So the reason why Joe Biden was able to answer the questions so well is because the questions were already approved. He knew what they were going to ask him. He probably had the questions and the response written down right in front of him. And this was an interview on a Philadelphia radio show. From what I understand, too, it's a Black-owned station in Philadelphia. And this did not go so well for the radio host or the station once this was revealed on CNN. And she's just being honest. Hey, let's give her props for telling the truth. Damn. Let's give her props for telling the truth, because usually this does not happen. B said, wow, she said the quiet part aloud. She did. She told the truth. She could have just lied and protected the White House, but she didn't. So listen to the rest.
And the reason I ask is not a criticism of either view. It's just that if the White House is trying now to prove the vim, vigor, acuity of the president, I don't know how they do that by sending questions first before the interview so that the president knows what's coming. Let me play here a bit of your interview. This is, and you've probably seen it's gotten a lot of attention. This is when he was asked about his accomplishments as president. Let's play it.
I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, the first Black woman to serve with a Black president.
That part right there is what sent shockwaves across the interwebs there. I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first Black woman to serve with a Black president. Now, I think we all know what he may have been trying to say there, that he is proud to be the first president to serve with the first Black vice president, which we can get into the whole Kamala Black thing at another time. But the reality is we going to go down that road one day because we going to debunk some things. OK, but I think we know what he meant to say, but it's what he said. So this went viral. And that's why this particular interview received so much attention.
Did you hear, as it's being covered, the president say that he was proud to be the first black woman president? Because that's what the headlines all over the internet are suggesting.
I find it interesting that they saw and heard that. What I got from him was that he was intimating that Kamala Harris was the first black woman vice president. And I guess with his speech impediment, they heard something else. And I find it interesting that that was the only thing that they picked out of that entire conversation and ran with it.
Pause for a second. So think about what she just said here, folks. I think we all just heard the same thing, right? Didn't we all just listen to the same thing? Right? So she's like, well, that's not what I heard. We just listened to this, right? Okay. Just checking, guys. Just checking.
Look, we have a hard way to go in this country. I am listening to the community that is speaking to me every single day on WURD radio. We are answering, looking at the things that are mattering to us. We can't afford to get excited and fumble and flumble about what folks are thinking about the president and his frailty and his speeches. We are concerned about the purging of the government in Project 2025. We've been talking about this on WURD since January, fully and completely, the slashing of the Department of Justice and dismantling the FBI and
guys,
replacing their traditional independence from political pressure with fealty to the administration.
She is upset about dismantling the FBI. She's upset about dismantling the FBI. Why is that a bad thing? You know, like, these are the things we need to talk about. Why are you mad about that? How is the FBI helping you and protecting you? The FBI who killed Fred Hampton? The FBI who killed MLK? The FBI who killed Malcolm X? You have a problem with people wanting to dismantle that organization? What? The FBI is not trying to help you, boo. The FBI is not trying to help your community. If anything, the FBI is trying to infiltrate your community and take your leaders out. I don't get it.
The things that matter to us in the Black community. So when I ask them, what matters most to you, that President Biden has this speech impediment or that he's slowing down versus the other person who has all these other things going on, they keep saying to me, we did it on Friday on The Source. We did it Thursday. We keep asking them. They keep saying the same thing. We want the Democrats to win because we feel like if we do anything else, it's going to be a problem for us. What I'm concerned about is that no one really seems to be in the community talking to the very people who has the vote.
So what community is she referring to? So obviously there's a bit of an accent there. So I would assume she's probably from the Caribbean, but what community is she referring to? Is she's talking about the Caribbean community in Philadelphia, or is she talking about, you know, the descendants of slavery community in Philadelphia? I would think those two groups want different things. And sorry, but I call it like I see it. And from my own experience, those two groups would want different things. Like, you sound like a whole ass clown out here saying, oh my God, they want to dismantle the FBI. But peep this, fam. Apparently, because she admitted that on CNN, that the White House gave her the questions prior to the interview, it appears the radio station has now decided to give her the boot. Peep this. Black-owned radio station cuts ties with the host who interviewed Biden. WURD, the Black-owned Pennsylvania radio station that landed the first interview with Biden after the presidential debate, said on Sunday it had parted ways with the host who interviewed him. The station said host Andrea Lawful Sanders had arranged the interview without knowledge, consultation, or collaboration with the WURD management and violated the station's independence by taking questions from the White House. Bam, bam, bam. The station also subtly called out the White House for the practice, arguing it contributes to a historic cycle of marginalizing Black voices. This practice of delegitimizing Black voice continues today. WURD radio is not a mouthpiece for the Biden or any other administration. Internally, We will commit to reviewing our policies, procedures, and practices to reinforce WURD's independence and trust with our listeners. But mainstream media should do its own introspection to explore how they have lost the trust of so many Americans, Black Americans chief among them. Well. So I'll give the radio station credit for coming out and saying we are not going to be a mouthpiece of any presidential administration. That's really the way it kind of should be. It sucks that someone had to lose their job over all this. And that's the way I kind of look at it. This woman is now without a job. Joe Biden's media appearances since the debate have not been favorable. The interview with George Stephanopoulos, we went through all of that. Okay. The call into Morning Joe, the appearance on the radio station. I mean, at the end of it all, I don't know if Joe Biden thinks that he's a Black woman. I don't know if Joe Biden knows where he's at. And I don't know if Joe Biden realizes what is happening right in front of his face when people, key Democratic players, are telling him that he needs to step down. November is going to be wild, fam. November is going to be wild. Let's go to some of the comments here. LPA Film says, well, according to Genocide Joe, Black people want him for 4 more years and the elite are trying to stop him. It's wild, isn't it? Thank you, Egg64. If you're acing your so-called cognitive everyday tests, being a president, what's one more, Joe? Stop playing with me. I love that little egg. Thank you, Cool Blue. Biden's job approval is under 40%. Regardless, the Dems official nominee, U.S. president, will flip Republican Trump, who carried 30 states in 2016, may win 40 or 40 plus states here in 2024, even with New York and or California. That's interesting. Cool Blue, are you going to come into the call in tonight? Cool Blue's always great with this data. Thank you for this one as well. Biden's presidency collapsing, Dems imploding, inflation. The top issue will lead voters to switch White House party. 40 plus states, landslide/consensus. Thank you, Resurrect. Black boomers and Black women love the Dems and vote for them. Not this one. Not this one. Thank you, Cool Blue. 4 more years. #blue, no matter who/what. I hope you come into the call-in show tonight, Cool Blue. Thank you, Courtney. Joe knows he's got the Black because for decades, the majority of the Black vote went to the Democratic. Win or lose, so sad. Yeah, wait till we get into the Black misleadership class. I think that story's next because we need to have a conversation. Roger, Sabby, when they tell you Project 2025, tell them you doubt the GOP will have a net gain of 10 in the Senate. The GOP can't overcome a filibuster. Oh, that's a good point, Roger. Ding, ding, ding. That's a good one. JB, we'll have to screenshot this. Thank you, Peter. Joe wants to pull a Hillary and secure a win for Trump. Doesn't it feel that way? Doesn't it feel like, in a sense, that not just Joe, but it feels like CNN in a way may be trying to help get someone like Trump back in? Number one, it would help their ratings. We know they got high ratings under Trump presidency. And then also it will clear the way for, okay, then the next 4 years after that, we would get another Democrat back in. His presidency would be so horrible that people would say, never, ever again, we got to bring the Democrats back. But media would win because they would get higher ratings. Thank you, baby Ethernet. Radio hosts are revealing MSM regular practices. There you go. Thank you, Cool Blue. This is to Courtney Smith. In 2020, Biden carried Black voters nationally by plus 75 percentage points, 87% versus 12%. He is probably dipping down to plus 50s or even plus 40s. I'll have to check into that. I haven't checked that in a while, actually. Zach said she got super fired. Thank you, Egg. Biden admin want to talk and date about the first Afro-American woman VP, and yet he just sent one to go fall on her sword for his old decrepit self. Thank you, Justin B. What? The White House sends these interviewers the questions that Joe will answer, not the interviewer giving a list of the questions to the White House for approval? That's insane. Wow. Yeah. Well, it's like the influencer, Harry Sisson, who was able to interview Joe Biden. Remember, he said that he was not allowed to talk to him about Gaza. They told him you can't bring that up. Thank you for this as well, Justin. These interviewers have been following Biden for decades, but maybe missed his crime bill. Crazy. I know, right? Like one of the guys from the radio station said, oh, it's been 45 years. Shout out to Robert Templeton for gifting 5 Sabby memberships. Thank you, Robert. Hope you guys are happy about that. And thank you, Goba, another stellar show. Thanks for covering all the madness of the dying empire while helping us make some sense of it all. You are welcome, Goba. And thank you, Absalom Jones. Interview at Mr. Chuck D about his State Department job. I can try. Because Sabby don't like that. I saw it too. I didn't like that. I was like, what the fuck? I thought, what happened to fight the power? So there's that. 2 quick announcements and then we'll continue on, folks. Our comrade Roger Meadows had a car accident earlier today. You guys know Roger. You see him a lot on the after show, the call-in after show. Roger also is the one that helps me with the ballot measures that I cover all the time on the show. So Roger did have a car accident. Obviously, that is going to cause some expenses here. From what I understand, the car was severely damaged. Roger is okay, though. Roger is alive. Let's be very clear here so people understand. Roger's okay. Roger is alive. But Roger does have a mutual aid request. If you guys can help him, I put his Cash App here. His Cash App is $RMoney16. And Eric, you can put the link to that in the chat. Okay. Again, I don't do this for everybody, but Roger is a real one. And, you know, I know Roger does need some help here. And we also have his Venmo as well. His Venmo is at Roger-Meadows. So you can do Venmo or Cash App. Eric, if you can put the link to both of those in the chat, thank you so much. Yeah, Cash App is there. $RMoney16. Thank you. Yeah, just glad. Again, I'm glad he's okay. Because I don't, driving in New York City is crazy. People be doing some weird things in New York City. So I'm just glad that he's okay. And there's his Venmo there as well. Thank you. All right. Yeah, thank you so much for that as well. Welch's Grape says, Roger deserves the help, guys. He is a major Sabby Sabs contributor. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. But I'm glad you're okay, Roger. And I do have another announcement that's a good announcement. Get this, guys. So this account on Twitter called the Zago Brothers, they made a tribute to some of their favorite, it says, favorite truth tellers who have kept us informed or insane. And apparently I made the list. I was so surprised. It says, here's a tribute to some of our favorite truth tellers who have kept us informed and sorry, not insane, sane. We didn't keep them insane. I hope not. Sane. Anyway, check it out, guys. But apparently, I made it. Here, I'm right here. They put me right next to Kit from Hardlands Media to the left and right next to Max Blumenthal. That's so cool, right? And they put us actually, they put me and Kit right below the judge. You guys know Judge Napolitano? Is that how you say his name? You guys know Judge, you know him, right? Okay, anyway. I thought this was kind of cool because, look at some of the people. There's Comrade Misty, who, again, Misty, huge Assange activist up here at the top. Let me pull out. So that didn't sound right. I'm terrible sometimes. I said, let me pull out. Anyway, you can see it better this way. There's Comrade Misty right there. Huge Assange activist. Misty obviously has been doing that for years, killing the damn game. You have Glenn Greenwald. And you have Abby Martin. I'm not going to go through everybody, but I'm just going to point out a few. There's Fiorella, Danny Haifong. Is that Professor Richard Wolff? Yeah, there's Professor Richard Wolff. Julian Assange is right here, guys, like kind of bringing everybody together. Maybe that's what all of us had in common was Julian Assange. I'm not sure. But that could be what put all of us together. But look down here. There's Claire Daly, you guys. There's Chris Hedges. There's Medea Benjamin. There's Professor Morandi. Like, I felt seriously like honored. I thought this was like a huge thing to be featured here because most of the time, you know, you wouldn't see me in this. And I want to say something here. So quick shout out to the Zago brothers. I thought that was awesome. That's really cool. And I appreciate that. Obviously, everybody is not here. Everyone in independent media is not featured in this picture. And I think it's important to go back to what they said at the very top of the post, as they said, these are some of our favorite ones. So it doesn't mean that because someone is not here, that they're not considered to be a truth teller. They just made a list of the ones that they feel were their favorites. And I just want people to understand, because some people are freaking out over this. I want people to understand that there have been a number of times when there are pictures that I'm not included in, and there are events that I'm not invited to. So that's why I was very surprised that I was included in this picture, because a lot of times I'm not included, you know, a lot of times people forget about me. But that being said, I don't sit up here and like get angry about it. I don't sit up there and start attacking people because I'm not included. I look inward and ask myself, what can I do differently? How can I improve what I do? How can I improve my work? And I'm always trying to constantly improve. This is never a done thing for me. But that's just the way that I've always been. So some people were offended by this picture because certain people weren't on it. And all I just want to say is that everybody is not going to be included in everything. Just like I'm not included in everything. Most of the time, I'm not. So there's that. But I thought this was really cool of them. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate that. And again, maybe this is the piece. Maybe it was Julian Assange in this picture that pulled everyone together. Maybe. I don't know. Thanks guys so much. Cool thing there. All right, we can go to part 2. Eric, when you're ready. And let me go ahead and pull up these comments while we wait. LPA Films, take the time to search the anchors and pundits bios and you will see they're all related in a relationship or friends with someone else in the circle. Bingo. This is what I was saying too before about Anderson Cooper, Chris Cuomo, like all these people are connected, right? And H. Musa, Judge Napolitano is doing a real good job, as well as you, Sabby. Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. And thank you for the Rumble rant. Let's go ahead and grab that. Thank you for the Rumble rant, Dave. Having worked in radio, it's clear that this interview was pre-recorded. Ooh. I can literally pinpoint where the engineer clicks play. Oh. Things are becoming less hilarious and more serious every day. Wow. Well. I guess we shouldn't be surprised, huh? I guess not. Okay. Let's get into the misleadership class. We're going to start with Karine Jean-Pierre. The White House press secretary got a little tense, little angered, little flustered because a number of reporters were confronting her about Joe Biden's health, which rightfully so. The American people have a right to know what is happening with the president. So let's dive into this, because I believe that Karine Jean-Pierre is one of the people that is a part of the Black misleadership class, because she's misleading people every time she gets in front of that podium as press secretary. And she's going to do it here as she loses it on these reporters. Shout out to Simon Ataba for this clip. Let's dive in.
Very basic, direct question.
Wait. Hold on. Wait a second.
Eight times, or at least once, in regards to the president specifically.
Hold on a second.
That's what you should be able to answer by this point.
Wait, no. No, wait a minute. Ed, please. A little respect here, please. So every year, around the president's physical examination, he sees a neurologist. That's 3 times, right? So I am telling you that he has seen a neurologist 3 times while he has been in this presidency. That's what I'm saying. I am telling you that he has seen them 3 times. That is what I'm sharing with you, right? So every time he has a physical, he has had to see a neurologist. So that is answering that question.
No, it's not.
No, it is. It is. You're asking me. I also said to you, Ed, I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names. We cannot share names. We have to.
Others he would have met with.
We cannot.
You can share names in regards to if someone came here in regards to the president.
We cannot share names of specialists broadly, from a dermatologist to a neurologist. We cannot share names. There are security reasons. We have to protect. I understand that. I hear you.
Right there for anyone to see.
Ed, I hear you. I cannot from here confirm any of that because we have to keep their privacy. I think they would appreciate that too. We have to give them.
The doctor.
We have to keep their privacy.
It is public information.
I hear you. Guys, hold on a second. There's no reason to go back and forth with me in this aggressive way.
Myth around here about how information's been shared with the press corps about him.
So there is absolutely every reason for those journalists to be aggressive towards her, just like journalists were aggressive towards Sarah Huckabee Sanders when she was press secretary. When people see you constantly lie to cover for the president, and we can see with our own eyes that there is something wrong that is happening with the president of the United States cognitively, they have every right to be aggressive because you are the press secretary. You wanted that job, Corinne. Didn't Jen Psaki tap you in and she rolled out and went to MSNBC and got her gig? So once Karine Jean-Pierre is done here, she'll probably have a gig on MSNBC too. That's just how this works. They're just funneling people from presidential campaigns, from administrations into network media. And that's part of the reason why our media is so biased. That in the State Department. So think about that. I consider her to be part of the misleadership class because this woman gets out there and she lies every day to the American people. That's why she's part of the misleadership class. This isn't her first time working for a liar. She used to work with Anthony Weiner. That's right, the Weiner man. So she's been down this road before. They have every right to be upset.
You missed about. What do you miss about?
Everything he just asked about.
And then every time I come back and I answer the question that you guys asked.
Correctly, then have to come back and clean up.
I never answered the question incorrectly. That is not true. I was asked about a medical exam. I was asked about a physical. That was in the line of question that I answered. And I said, no, he did not have a medical exam. And I still stand by that. Matter of fact, the president still stands by that. He had a verbal check-in. That is something that the president has a couple times a week.
Now in regards to Dr. Kevin Kennard.
And I am telling you right now that I am not sharing confirming names from here. It is the security reasons. I am not going to do that, Ed. It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me. I'm not going to confirm a name. It doesn't matter if it's even in the log. I am not going to do that from here.
Well, the name is already out there, honey. The name is already out there for people to see. I mean, she's saying the name is in a log. The name is out there for the world to see. Yes, Christopher, the Wiener man. Anthony Weiner.
That is not something I am going to do. What I can share with you is that the president has seen a neurologist for his physical 3 times. 3 times. And it is in the reporting that we share a comprehensive reporting. Matter of fact, it's more than what the last guy shared, and it is in line with what George W. Bush did. It's in line with what Obama did.
Now, here's where we need to come check the lie, right? Joe Biden said on Morning Joe and in the interview with George Stephanopoulos that he has had a neurological check every day. According to Karine Jean-Pierre, he's had it 3 times. But according to Joe Biden, every day, which is it? Are you having a neurological check-in every day? Or are you having it those 3 times when you had the 3 physicals? Or just a couple times a week? Somebody's lying here. And it's either her or it's Joe Biden.
And so it is comprehensive. It is out there. I just read a quote from it. But I am not going to devolve somebody's name or confirm someone. I'm not going to do that. That is as privacy for that person. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me from here. I'm just not going to do that. It is inappropriate. It is not acceptable. So I'm not going to do it.
Not about the name.
Go ahead.
If you cannot confirm the name, can you confirm whether or not the president has seen this Parkinson's specialist? And you mentioned 3 times that the visitor logs show a duration of 8 visits over 8 months. I think that is the crux of the question.
But I also said there are thousands of military personnel that come to the White House, and they are under the care of the medical unit. They are.
So can you confirm that the Parkinson's specialist visits were for the president or not?
What I can tell you is that the president has seen a neurologist 3 times, and I read to you what the neurologist has said, and I read to you the last line. I could say it again. No findings which would be consistent with any cerebellar or other central neurological disorders such as stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or ascending lateral sclerosis. That is from February.
It is July. It is July. February was a couple of months ago. I would say that Joe Biden seems to be worse off now than he was in February. Like I said, he has declined over time. But again, once again, she has said he's seen a neurological specialist 3 times. Joe Biden has gone on to multiple interviews and he said he's having a neurological checkup every day. So there's that. Obviously, there was a Parkinson's specialist there at the White House, on the grounds, at the facility. He saw someone. And I mean, you know, if we had on a blindfold and we just had to spin around and point our finger, I'm pretty sure a lot of us would point our finger in the direction towards Joe Biden. Just making an educated guess.
That is coming from February. That is what the medical unit
admitted. The president had a quote, short check-in with the medical team thereafter. I mean, those are 2 very different.
No. Actually, if you were to listen to I think I did a 30-minute gaggle on Friday, 30 minutes with I think it was with the pool, and I said he did not have a medical. I cleared it up. You're right. You're correct. I said he didn't. I still stand, but he didn't have a medical exam. I said that in the gaggle, and you're right. I said that in the briefing. He had a check-in with, and he said this on Friday. He had a check-in with his medical doctor, which is something that he does a couple times a week, as you know, and I stated this as well.
Hold on, honey, because here's the thing. Either Joe Biden had a medical exam or he had a check-in. Now I'm hearing so many different things. I'm hearing a neurological exam 3 times. Then I'm hearing, no, he didn't have a medical exam. He just had a check-in. Which is it? And you can tell she's not being truthful here. She was struggling there with the words a little bit. Oh, let me be careful what I say here. Let me be careful what I spit out because people are going to, hold me accountable to it, which they will. But I mean, this is all over the place. It's pretty simple to me. You guys think it's pretty simple too. You know whether or not you went to the doctor and you had an actual exam or you just had a check-in, right?
He has, for those who don't know, obviously outside of the briefing room, outside of the White House, many Americans don't actually understand this, so let's take a step back. They deal with their medical issues or physicals very, very differently. They are very, they are lucky if they get to see their doctor once or twice a year, right? They have to get in a car, they have to either take public transportation in order to make that happen. The president's medical unit is literally down on the other side of the colonnade. It's just down the steps from the residence. And so a couple times a week, he does a check-in, a verbal check-in with his doctor while he's exercising. That is something that happens often. Matter of fact, he did a check-in today because I know folks were going to ask about if he was tested for COVID. He was not. We are following CDC guidance. He was not tested for COVID, just to let you guys know about that one. And if he has any symptoms, obviously, we would test him. But
in the context of the second gentleman's diagnosis?
Yes, which is why. No. It's in context of the second gentleman. But to answer your point, he did not have a medical exam. He did not have a physical. He did do like a verbal check-in with his doctor a couple days after the debate. And it was very quick. It was a couple of words that were spoken to each other. And that's how we were able to give you that answer. But he did not have a medical exam. He did not have a physical.
No, though, last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Did you know about that verbal check-in, or did we just not ask him that precise question?
So the line of questions that I was getting that day was, in the way that I was hearing the question, was about the medical exam. I answered MJ's question when she asked me medical exam, and I answered and I said no, physical. And then somebody else asked me, was there a check-in? I did not mean to steer anybody wrong. I was still thinking about the medical exam. I was still thinking about the physical. That's how I answered the question.
Nah, honey. See, she trying to save her job now. So here's the thing. I call her a part of the Black misleadership class because, let's be real, we know that she had a job before this position. She didn't have to take this position. She was recommended by Jen Psaki, right? And Jen got out of there because she knew where things were heading. So she taps her in. So she slides in. And remember, the press secretary can resign at any time. Instead of trying to stand up there and spin these fables to protect Joe Biden when everybody can see what's happening right in front of us. So if Karine Jean-Pierre had any real integrity, she would resign. She would step down. She'd be fine. The press secretaries, they funneled them right into MSNBC. She would be fine. But here she is still spinning this narrative for Joe Biden. And see, what happens is that little kids, little Black girls and little Black boys, when they look at the TV screen, they look up and they see someone like Karine Jean-Pierre and they think, wow, that's someone that looks like me. And that's why it's really disappointing when I see someone who is a part of that representation sit up there and just spew these lies, because that's not what I want for the future of kids in this country. I worked with students. That is not what I want for them. I don't want them to look up to people like Kamala Harris. I don't want them to look up to people like Karine Jean-Pierre. These people are paid liars. They'll look out for their own interests, and the State Department, they will not look out for yours. And they are there just to further their political career. I don't want them to look up to people like that. I want them to look up to people like Fred Hampton. I want them to look up to people like Malcolm X. Those are the people that I want them to look up to, not these puppets who are leading them just further down a tunnel of neoliberalism with no clear goal and no more gains for their future. That is not what I want for these kids. Because the reality is, in order to get there like her, you got to sell out like her. That's how she got there. And I don't want those kids to sell out. Misleadership class.
And then when it became, when the president actually spoke to it, I went back, asked the medical doctor, and he said they had a verbal check-in. That's what he said. But in answering the question, I was talking about the medical exam. I was talking about the physical.
And then quick ones. There's a lot of reporting in the last 24 hours about a Parkinson's expert who's come to the White House almost a dozen times over the last year or so, including at least one meeting with the president's physician. Could you state, very clearly, yes or no, was that expert here to participate in anything surrounding the care of the President of the United States?
So let me just say a couple of things. We have had a comprehensive, and I just want to take another step back, comprehensive physical examination. The president has had that. We've given a comprehensive report. We've shared that the past 3 years. Every year that he has had this exam, he sees a neurologist. Just to give you a quote from that, from the report most recently in February, an extremely detailed neurological exam was again reassuring in that there were no findings which would be consistent with any cerebellar or other central neurological disorder, such as a stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or ascending lateral sclerosis, end quote. So that came directly from in February.
I didn't hear anything about dementia. I didn't hear anything about Alzheimer's. I didn't hear anything about that. And again, like I said, they have been known to lie to us before, especially if they think it's going to cause panic. Listen, people, it's an election year. You think they were actually going to admit to people, yeah, this is what's happening to the president and he's experiencing these issues? No, people would panic.
In that comprehensive report that was provided by the president's doctor to me, that I share with all of you. So anyone who is watching can certainly go to our website.
The question, which was this expert's visits, was multiple visits to the White House pertaining at all to the president's care?
Well, here's the thing. I've said he has had three. He has had three physicals. In those 3 physicals, that's when he has seen a specialist, a neurological specialist. I have to be super mindful here, and this is why, and I'll explain this to you in a second. There are thousands of military personnel who come onto this White House. Many of them get the care from the White House medical unit, and so need to be super careful. There are, the medical unit hosts a wide range of specialists, from dermatologists to neurologists, and so I cannot speak to every person because there's actually a security reasons to protect their privacy. We respect and protecting people's privacy, so do not want to share. I'm not going to share people's names from here, but the president, I can tell you, has seen a neurologist 3 times, as it's connected to a physical that he gets every year that we provide to all of you.
So, Simon Ataba, this journalist here, by the way, earlier today, he posted that they would not allow him into the press conference room this time. They kept him outside. So I guess he wouldn't get more video footage like this. Just FYI. But I want you to think about what she was just saying about all the different types of, healthcare options that is offered to the president of the United States. Meanwhile, some of you don't even have health insurance. Isn't that interesting? Corinne Jean-Pierre, Black misleadership class. And then there is the Black church. And I didn't had it with this. I didn't had it. I'm sick of this. And I've been very clear about this multiple times. Now, my comrade, Nick from RBN, said the Black church is trash. If your religion has you defending genocide and corrupt politicians, then your religion is garbage. Look at this, fam. Now you got Joe Biden standing here again. Who is the one helping him along? Joe Biden standing up here right in front of the Black church. Watch this.
Forgive us for division. Forgive us for allowing the enemy to drive wedges between us.
They said, forgive us for let's go back, because I want to tell you what they're trying to do. Watch this.
Forgive us for division.
Forgive us for division.
Forgive us for allowing the enemy to drive wedges between us.
Allowing the enemy to drive wedges between us. This is why I hate it when people say, don't talk about this, don't do that, it's divisive. No, these things are not divisive. Calling out Joe Biden's bullshit is not divisive. The fact that Joe Biden is losing support from Black voters is not divisive. It's called facts. Now, all of a sudden, this is divisive. The Black church has always been there to pick up people like Joe Biden, these crooked politicians. And it doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat. They all stop through and stomp on into the Black church because they know that's where they're going to get a lot of their support from. I don't believe that the presidents should be in the church. I don't believe they should be going to the Black church. Let the people just come there and enjoy the ceremony and worship in peace. Stop trotting these old dudes through the Black church telling the people, support this person who has done nothing for your community, who looks past you every time. But here they are, holding us back.
Because if we ever lock arms and come together, there's no election that we cannot win. There's no enemy that we cannot defeat. We are together because we love our president.
So he said, they're telling us about an election we cannot win. Listen to this.
We are together because we love our president.
I'm sorry, I didn't go back far enough. Let's try it again. Okay, here it is. Sorry, guys. I know you can drive crazy.
Lock arms and come together. There's no election that we cannot win.
Did you hear what he just said? Come together and lock arms. There's no election that we cannot win. Why is the church the place for elections? What do you mean election we cannot win? There's no we. What have they done for the Black community? I don't get this. I don't know if this is a generational divide or what, but I do know more younger Black people are less likely to go to church. And this could be part of the reason why. What do you mean election we cannot win? There is no we, fam. There's no we. This man sit up here and sent all this money to Israel and to Ukraine. And meanwhile, you guys are struggling to put money into the collection plate in church. You rumbling through your purse to see if you got $1 or a couple of coins to give it in the collection plate. But all this money going out the door to Ukraine and Israel? What is happening here? I've always had a problem with this. How about you stay out of that? Always coming to help them all along the way. No matter he's done nothing for people in the community, but the Black church will always be there to carry it along.
There's no enemy that we cannot defeat. We are together because we love our president. We ask that you continue to give him strength. He's an Eagles fan. Renew his youth like the Eagles.
Renew his youth like the Eagles. Why? Why? So he can stay in office?
With wings as eagles run and not be weary, walk and not faint. And we thank you for bringing us together this day. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's give God some praise. Come on, let's praise him. We're together.
Mr. I grew up in the Black church looks very uncomfortable, don't he? Don't Joe Biden look like he's uncomfortable? What? What? Right? Okay. There's another one. There's more. Watch this.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Looks scared as hell, don't he? Does he look like he knows what's going on? Does he look comfortable? Does he look comfortable? Now you guys then brought this man in here, you asking God to help him and heal him and all this kind of stuff. You sitting down next to this man. Meanwhile, a lot of people in the congregation can't even afford to put money in the collection plate, and he's sending money to other places. Have you asked Joe Biden when he come to your church? Did you ask him to repent for his sins, for hanging out with people like Strom Thurmond and Byrd and all those racists and the things that he did to the Black community? Do you ask him to repent for the crime bill? No, you don't. You just let him come in there and you kiss his ass. Black misleadership class, the Black church, the Black press, who continue to sit there and run cover for this. And I don't give a damn. I don't care if it's Joe Biden. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. Y'all let all them politicians come in there and they do a goddamn thing for the community, but they giving money to everybody else. I'm pretty sure God would want you to call that out.
I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Let us stand together. Oh, at the cross, where I first saw the light.
He trying to figure out, do I need to call the cops on all these Negroes? Because literally, let us stand. And anybody who's grown up in the church, I grew up in the church. I talked to you guys about this before. So I grew up in the church. You know, when they say, let us stand, everybody's supposed to stand. And he trying to figure out, what do I do? Damn, there's a lot of black people in here. Am I safe? Do he look comfortable to you? He does not look comfortable at all. This is embarrassing. And just, you know, even Trump could have faked it. And he's just sitting there like this. There's a lot of black people around here. You know, it's just some of the people in that congregation may have family members that were victims of Joe Biden's crime bill. You know, and because he's the president, they just give him a pass. Don't hold him accountable for anything, any of the policies that he's put in action, the statements that he made about black people. You don't want your kids to grow up in a racial jungle. And here he is sitting in the black church and nobody says anything. You just welcome him because he's the president of the United States. And even when he was running for office, you just welcome him because he was running for office. The black church has held us back. And pass this on to your friends and pass it on to your family. I'm not here to tell you you can't go to church. Everybody has a right to practice whatever religion they want to practice. But what I am here to tell you is this. If you're going to be running campaigns through the church, in particular the black church, these churches need to start paying some damn taxes. That's how I see it. Start paying some damn taxes. How about you do that? Did Joe put money in the collection plate? Do any of these politicians put money in the collection plate?
And the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith. How sweet the sound that saved.
It's just so, I don't know. And listen, I have brought, when I was growing up, I brought friends of mine to church with me, right? When I was like in high school and middle school. And I've even brought some of my white friends to church with me. And it's, you know, a lot of times it's their first time going to a black church. None of them looked uncomfortable like Joe. And this church, for the most part right now, you know, they're singing like a hymn. My church was different. People were dancing, clapping, running down the aisles. I thought that would really scare a lot of people away, but apparently it didn't. But Joe looked so uncomfortable. When we talk about the black misleadership class, when we talk about this buffoonery, right? You carrying this man. And I feel like you have held our community back. The reason why I feel like we don't have more radicalism within the black community is because the black church and people like Jim Clyburn, the black misleadership class, you don't need to do all that. Just go to church and pray about it and God will fix it. Believe whatever you want to believe when it comes to religion. But to me, that almost kind of felt like a way to hold back people from actually having any type of revolution. Don't challenge anybody. Don't face anybody head on. Just pray about it. And a prayer can only go so far. Can only go but so far. But I've watched for years as these politicians have paraded their way through the black church, and this is where they go to get the votes. Who do you think is in there? Jim Clyburn on a Rolodex has every black pastor and also the black boule. That's who they are going to. You don't see them in poor black neighborhoods. When they campaigning, they don't come to see you. This is why when people say the majority of black Americans are not coming out to vote, the majority of black Americans are working class. We don't even have election day as a freaking holiday. You don't see these presidents going to see those people. Where do they go? Universities, black church, fraternities and sororities. They ain't going to the hood. My parents are from the hood. They ain't going to the hood. You don't even want to see it. Look how long it took him to go to East Palestine, Ohio. They don't even want to go to rural white America. You think they want to go to the black hood? The black church has held us back. Politicians like Jim Clyburn, who said that he is a progressive because he fought in jail or something like that, has held us back. These people made a lot of money and they got comfortable. These people are too busy worried about optics. These people are still sitting there thinking, as much as they tell you when you go to church every day, every time you go to church and they tell you to believe and to pray, they still believe in that the president of the United States is going to be the savior. They still believe that that's who's running the country. No talk about the corporations, the corporate ties. No talk about the donor class. Just, we got to pray for our president and help him. We ain't got to help him do nothing. None of them. When are they going to help us? And this is what I've been trying to get through to people. We are past the time of JFK saying, don't ask like what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Nah, motherfucker, it's 2024. It's time for the country to do something for us. Period. Misleadership class. Let's go to some of the comments. Oh, I think I said that one. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat, Blueser. Holy smokes. Thank you for this. That's very generous of you. Keep the truth and fire going, Sabs. I'm educated every time I tune in. I got you, Roger. Stay up, man. Hashtag pull out. That's the word for the night. Pull out. Pull out is the word. Thank you for the super chat, Zero Campbell. Knowingly submitting false information while in an official capacity is fraud and should be grounds for removal. Here comes Zero Campbell with the law. Thank you. Thank you, Snork. He has declined faster than a dead skunk stinks. You know, skunks are actually pretty cute. It's too bad they like to, stink up everything, but they're actually really cute. Miss Kiwi, KJP came from PBS, NewsHour before the White House job after Anthony Weiner. MSNBC stable seems from right now with the quota of dim liars. As to me, white dude responsible for more black people in jail than anyone in history is being paraded around by the black church leaders like he is Jesus. Yes, sir. Thank you for the super chat. None of your business. I think you mean to be honest, or no, thank the black church infiltrated like everything else. You could be right. Thank you, Leon. Secular boomers aren't any less nuts, though. Good point. Leon's like, wait a minute. Thank you, baby Ethernet. Is Joe being instructed to make these appearances? Probably. Thank you, Edward. The IRS forbids churches and similar charities from engaging in any political campaign activity. But it still happens, Edward. It still happens. You heard them. I'm telling you. Thank you for this as well, Leon. Black church was ruined when we got tax exemptions. I'm telling you, man, people make these churches pay taxes. That's how it is. Thank you for the super sticker, Rosalind. Thank you. Thank you, baby Ethernet. Biden lost his cheat sheet for church appearances. Biden looks so uncomfortable. He looks so uncomfortable. Thank you, David. That collection plate went to Act Blue, Sabs, LOL. Shout out to Miss Delthea, who's been a member for 35 months. The Black church is conservative because King was not. This right-wing organization has hidden their grift behind an idolization of King. Thank you, Tristan. It is about class, not race, gender, or otherwise. Divide and rule. Colonizers always do as they do. Don't think about class war declared upon us. Thank you, Courtney. Sabby, don't be too disappointed when you find out that some of those Black churches who are endorsing Joe are receiving grants from the government. Thank you, Blueser. The devil in the pulpit. No shame. I'm done with them all. Is no one confused in that church? Philly is in the dumps and you're shouting for a man who leaves you high and dry. It's the part I don't get, fam. Thank you, baby Ethernet. DNC 2024. Pull out of the establishment. Pull out is the word for the night, fam. And thank you, Leprechaun. Having problems with sending super char. Had to try to send 5 times and you're fabulous. Oh, maybe you meant super chat. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know, man. Sometimes like it's easier for me to do it on my phone, but not so much like my computer. I don't know. And thank you, Cool Blue. People born November 5th, 1959 and before are age 65 and up on election day, November 5th, 2024. The 18 to 29 voting group were born at the latest November 5th, 2006. Those bookend age groups have some different economic realities. I agree with you. Definitely, it is different around here. All right, guys, go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Let's get the comment on Rockfin. Yeah. Rock to the fin. It's the rock to the fin. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, JVB. So cool. You deserve to have that entourage, Sabby, and your humble comment is beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. That's sweet. Now let's go on to some pretty decent, badass effing news. We're switching over to foreign policy. In France, a couple of days ago, I was telling you that it seemed like the right wing was rising up and was going to take over in France. Apparently, that did not happen. However, it appears Macron didn't get a big win either. There has been a left alliance that formed in France. These are different left groups. There's a communist group that's a part of it, like the Communist Party. I believe like some type of social democrat or whatever is part of it or whatever. Anyway, these groups are to the left of Macron's party. And obviously to the left of the right party, but to the left of Macron's party. And they were able to win an extraordinary amount of seats. I believe last time I checked, it was 180, which no one predicted and no one expected. Let's go ahead and get into this story here and what that could mean for the West.
We are hearing from the office of the French President Emmanuel Macron, who says he's studying the results of the legislative elections and will await the final structuring of the new National Assembly before taking any necessary decisions. We should have that tomorrow morning. His office says the president will ensure that the sovereign choice of the French people is respected. The results are nothing less than shocking, a complete turnaround, an apparent rebuke of the far right in favour of the far left. The New Popular Front, a left-wing coalition, is now projected to win more votes than any other bloc in the second round of parliamentary elections. President Emmanuel Macron's centrist alliance projected to finish second, followed by the far-right National Rally Party. Pause here. So does everybody see what just happened?
NPF, that's what they're calling it, the New Popular Front, they received between 178 to 205 seats. And Ensemble, this is Macron's party, which has received 157 to 174 seats. And of course, the National Rally Party, which is the right-wing party, received the estimate of 113 to 148 seats. Long story short, the Left Alliance, NPR, they received the most number of seats, which means, you know how this goes in Europe, it's a little bit different. That means that technically President Macron needs to be gone. Now, because they received the most amount of seats they won in this particular election, but they still don't have the majority. This is where it gets kind of weird. They still don't have the majority. That means that there's kind of like a deadlock for who is going to assume that position. So President Macron is not resigning yet. He's just kind of just waiting in the wings because NPR doesn't have enough people to have a majority, but neither does Ensemble and neither does National Rally. But what this shows you folks is that when people keep saying left policies can't win, France just proved you wrong about this. What they did to win was that they collaborated with other left groups. So instead of having all these different parties, all these people came together and said, look, we're going to fight for these particular left issues and we're going to win this damn thing. And here we are. Let's continue.
Shocking because of what happened in the first round of elections last weekend, when it was a completely different picture. The far-right party got the most votes, followed by the left-wing bloc. Macron slumped to third. It's important to note Mr. Macron will remain president. He said he'll serve out the remainder of his term, which expires in 2027. Let's head to our team in the field. Melissa Bell is at the election event here in Paris with the far-right party. Let's first go to Jim Bitterman outside the office of the Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, another young Prime Minister. We were expecting to have another one announced, weren't we? Because the leader of the right is only 28 years old. But it does seem as though Macron is slightly strengthened. The far left is very strengthened. So who is going to take the Prime Minister's office if this plays out as we expect?
That is a really good question, Max. The fact is that no one knows at this turning. We're assuming we're going to hear from the current Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, 34 years old, by the way, in the next few minutes here. And we're assuming that he's going to say he's going to stay in this office, as you might like if you were here. I mean, this is a pretty nice place to operate out of. Having said that, there's going to be challenges to that. The far left is going to say, well, wait a second, we had the most seats in the parliament, even though we don't have an absolute majority. They had to have 289 seats in order to have the absolute majority. They're far from that. The far right was far from it, and so was Macron's centrists. So it's a kind of thing that's where the parliament's divided. The prime minister can be named by the president, but that doesn't mean he can stay in power very long, because there'll be challenges coming from the parliament that basically have a challenge to his authority at the first turning. Every time as soon as he tries to do something, there will be a challenge to that in the parliament. So, and there also could be challenges in the streets. That's one of the things we kind of are hearing rumors about already, that there might be some demonstrations against the guy that's sitting here, Gabriel Attal, if he tries to stay in power, when in fact others had more votes this evening and got more seats in the parliament. Max?
Now I'll go ahead and say this, and I'm going to keep it real and give credit where credit is due. The French people know how to get things done. What do I mean by that? They don't just sit around talking about what we can't do, what we can't do. They actually go out and do it. Last year, when I was covering the protests that were happening in France, the French people were like, forget this, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you dare come along and increase our retirement age. And he increased it by 2 years. And the French people said, oh, hell to the no. Hell to the no. And they were protesting left and right. They were setting France on fire. I was like, holy snap, fam. And we were following this like for weeks. They were protesting in the streets. So when it came time to vote, look at what the people did. They put their activism with their vote. What I see oftentimes happen in the United States is we've had people protest in mass numbers, like the George Floyd protest, the pro-Palestine protest. But when it comes time to vote, which both of these happened during election years, when it comes time to vote, people most of the time just go along with what they were already doing before because they're afraid of the other side, or they stay at home. Even the coalition right now to abandon Biden in Michigan, the Uncommitted campaign, even that coalition right now, I'm like, shouldn't those people be funneled into supporting one of the pro-Palestinian candidates instead of just saying, I'm not committed to supporting Joe Biden? And this is where I think we fall short here in the United States. When we have massive movements in this country, which just tend to happen during election seasons, we don't transfer that into the votes, which we should be doing. So France, the French people did this. They had had enough of Macron. They were tired of his ish. And so they've protested a number of times against his policies, against his decisions. But when it came time to show up and vote, they made sure they supported the left alliance. Now, don't get me wrong. It took different groups coming together that agree on certain left positions for that to happen. We have so many different groups here in the United States, all these different groups. The Party for Socialism and Liberation, they do great work. The Green Party does great work. All these different groups do great work. But I just don't understand why we keep creating all these damn parties. And I said this before. Why doesn't everybody just come together for one big alliance, one big coalition to actually get some things done? And then I asked this question. Do people in the US really want to get things done? The French did. Now, I want you to see this clip here. This is from Midwestern Marks. Left-wing coalition defeats the far right in French elections. And again, this is a worker coalition that came together. Listen.
So the French elections took place this weekend, and guess what? I actually have some good news to report. Everybody expected the far right-wing National Rally Party led by Marine Le Pen to dominate the elections. However, a brand new leftist coalition that was spearheaded by Jean-Luc Mélenchon actually won the most votes. It was a coalition that was formed with the explicit goal of defeating the right-wing extremists, and it was successful. And this wasn't just a center-left coalition. It took place between many hard-left groups, involving Mélenchon's party, the French Green Party, the French Socialist Party, and the French Communist Party. And they're proving that real left-wing pro-working class politics is the only way to defeat right-wing populists. These right-wing parties that are gaining popularity as neoliberalism decays in Europe. It was under the neoliberal centrist leadership of Emmanuel Macron that the National Rally Party was able to gain such popularity. Macron and the centrists got second in the recent elections, by the way. So I think that there's a lot we can learn from this as Americans and as leftists going forward. We need unity of pro-working class and anti-imperialist forces in this country if we're going to defeat the far right. And by that, I don't mean allying with the Democratic Party and centrist neoliberals like Macron. I mean a coalition of real left-wing pro-working class forces who want to make regular working people's lives better. That is how we win.
And he is correct. So this alliance that happened in France, these are the pro-worker people. All these groups, they said, let's just come together for the workers, especially after Macron increased that retirement age. So, that got under people's skin. But the reality is they get things done. And I've said this before. Yes, everybody in France has health care. So if they get hurt by the police, they know that they have health protection. They can go to the doctor. That's going to be taken care of. There's that bit. The other bit is they do have other benefits that a lot of people don't have. Some people don't have paid leave in this country. Some people don't have paid vacation. If you were like me and you waited tables, you probably didn't have paid vacation. So there's all these things that go into it. However, when you look at all the different parties that we have in this country, I said, this don't make no sense. And I said it before too, even if you look at 2024 election, why are all these people running separately? You got Jill Stein, you got Dr. West, you got Claudia de la Cruz. All three of them pretty much agree on the issues. But it's like you're splitting I don't get it. Right? So we need to build and have some type of coalition in this country. Now, here's what that does not mean. Let's break this down. That doesn't mean you just join up with any Tom, Dick, and Harry that says, yeah, the system sucks. Because not everyone who says the system sucks has your best interest in hand or in mind as a worker. Okay? Some people say the system sucks, but they don't want you to have a living wage. So let's check that. Check that right at the door. But they get things done because they're able to put, and you said it, I'm going to bring it back up here. LPA Film said it. They're able to put the ego aside. There's too many egos. Ew. This country is wild with ego. I've never met so many people before in my life that just, I want to have the credit for this. Credit me. It's me. It's my thing. It's my this. It's my brand. It's my that. There's no community. There's no unity. There's no goddamn solidarity in this country. There isn't. How many of you know your next door neighbor? How many of you just go and knock on your neighbor's door and you can just sit down and talk? Do you even see their face? There's no community. When you don't have community, it's hard to have a foundation. So this I attitude is never going to get us anywhere as a group, as any type of worker power. That is never going to work. And we've learned this over and over again, but yet we continue to do it. So they were able to do that. All these different groups in this country, and people can't put ego aside, just little things. I don't want to be seen in the room with that person. You wouldn't believe some of the things that I hear. For those of us that do independent media, you wouldn't believe some of the things that I've heard, even in activist spaces. I don't want to be seen with that person. That's why shit don't get done. And honestly, I feel like some of the people that say that are the ones that are trying to prevent something from getting done. But they go out the streets. The French people said, no, this ain't the first time. Don't forget the yellow vest in France. They rose up. The people pushed back. They said, hell no, we're all in this together. We all care about our rights here. We all care about protecting the workers. But it's very clear to me in this country, not everyone cares about that. Very clear to me. Now, NFP, he gave a little speech here. I want you to hear something that he said. French politician Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is sweeping to a shock victory in the French election, has called for the recognition of a state of Palestine. France must recognize the Palestinian state now. The balance of power must show that the world condemns this genocide. It's in French, but I read it for you.
Faire preuve, comme nous l'avons fait dans cette élection, de détermination, de volonté politique, de discipline de combat. C'est-à-dire qu'il faut que, loin de rentrer chez vous et de vous dire seulement ouf, mais vous avez bien sûr le droit de vous dire ouf, il faut vous mobiliser. Nous allons avoir un Premier ministre ou une Première ministre du nouveau Front populaire. Tout à l'heure, Mathilde, la présidente du groupe Insoumis, Manuel et moi, on bavardait de comment on s'y prend. Écoutez, elle vous a dit la liste de tout ce qu'on peut décider par décret, vous l'avez entendu. Sur le plan national et sur le plan international, ça sera sans doute un peu plus, comment dirais-je, disputé. Mais c'est normal, puisque la Constitution donne au président de la République des prérogatives, mais elle les donne aussi au Premier ministre. Donc il va falloir que les deux s'entendent pour, par exemple, reconnaître le plus vite possible l'État de Palestine, puisque c'est un des rares moyens dont nous disposons de peser. Mais
all the people that came out, that was another part too. Again, like this made international news. And of course, as I said, Macron is not willing to step down. Listen to this.
French President Emmanuel Macron has refused to accept the resignation of his Prime Minister after a left-wing coalition won the country's parliamentary election. Dominic Waghorn reports from Paris.
It was accepted amongst most people that the far-right party, the National Rally, would not repeat the success it made in the first round of the elections and would not achieve the outright majority it so desperately wanted. But I think almost everybody expected it to still be the biggest party in the parliament. It was outmanoeuvred by a blocking manoeuvre by pretty much all its rivals across the political spectrum in France, the Republican Front as it's called, and that it's repeated what it's done in the past, which is kind of running against the National Rally and kind of neutralising its threat. But I don't think anybody expected the left-wing coalition to lead and Macron's Ensemble party to come second. So now the dust is settling, Sophie. I think people are now trying to work out how big a gamble it was, how big a failure it was by Macron, or did it actually vindicate what he did, taking this extraordinary gamble to call these unnecessary snap elections in the wake of the far-right's success in the European elections. There are those who are saying that actually it's not so big a crisis. They're saying that de Gaulle's Fifth Republic constitution is designed to kind of absorb these crises. It was based on the premise that the French are a fractious lot. They are so riven with squabbling, they need a very strong president. And the president has extraordinary powers. Conceivably, Emmanuel Macron could continue until he leaves office in 2027, ruling by decree and using some kind of place person as prime minister, pretty much as he has done since he lost his parliamentary majority, his party's majority, in 2022. So they would say plus ça change, but I think the majority of analysts are saying no, it was a big mistake. It was a gamble that has backfired, and what it's going to lead to is a huge amount of chaos and gridlock and a very difficult situation here politically. And I think the big concern amongst those critics of Macron is that because this gamble has backfired, and if he does try and rule by edict, those extremists, the far right and also the extremists on the left, are going to be even more strengthened, because their supporters will say, look what happens when you vote for your party. It's the outcome is stitched up by the rest of the establishment. They will be furious over the next 2.5 years watching a president using presidential edict, a man they call Jupiter, ruling on high, overriding and not listening to the will of the people as expressed through these elections. And therefore, when we come around to presidential elections in 2027, the far right could be even stronger. So we'll have to wait and see what happens then. I think what we are guaranteed to see now in French politics for weeks, months, possibly years to come, is political turmoil as the French president and his parliament kind of now grapple with what is effectively uncharted territory.
French president.
So again, Macron is not ready to resign. He's refusing to do so. But again, as he mentioned, they can move things in a different direction, especially now that the NPF party, now that they have the number of seats that they do. I mean, things can move in a way that they can get him to step down. So we'll have to see. We'll have to watch this very closely, because like I said, they don't have the majority. They won the most seats, but they don't have the majority. So it's essentially stalled. But the point that you need to take from that story is that different groups on the left came together and built an alliance, and they won. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you, Donna. New Day says, I've been saying the same thing for years. One word: consolidation. Thank you for the super chat, Sparky. Sabby, don't be too quick to cheer. It was a globalist conspiracy who won in France. They've got it set up to dispense with the true leftists who won, so they can throw it all back at the globalist elite. We'll have to wait and see. I'm hopeful. Thank you, Delthea. Individualism is a religion for most Americans, and communitarianism is a sin. So the bosses sleep well and never worry. Julie said, Sabby is too early. Let's wait and see how things are going in France. EU is worse in Brussels. We shall keep our eyes on it. I think I skipped. I sure did. I'm so sorry. Thank you for the super chat, Joan. Fire, clap, and love. And Eric is correct. Sounds like they coalesced around demands. Yeah, there you go. LPA Film says the same thing that we should have been pressuring Claudia, Jill, and West to do: consolidate stronger in larger numbers. Yeah. Edward says a Stein, La Riva, West, Baraka, United Left Party sounds good to me. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for the Sparky. Yellow Vest lost in France. Establishment set up Jean-Luc Mélenchon with a clusterfuck, leaving the globalists in power. Well, the Yellow Vests have won before in the past, though. You know, they have won for the workers. Thank you for that. Let's get the Rumble rants, and then we'll go to our next story. We are doing Sabby after show call-in tonight, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for the Rumble rants, Goo81. Today I learned Brazil set up a free trade agreement with the Palestinian Authority. Good news, but not a fan of the PA, who are the misleadership class of the Palestinians. Thank you for that. If Macron cares about France, he needs to resign and call elections. Ooh. Sorry about that. I don't know why I'm saying ooh to the Rumble ones, but your guys are the ones that are calling it out tonight. Okay. All right. Last story of the night. Remember after October 7th, there were a number of independent journalists that said that it is most likely, and they had reason to believe, that Israel used the Hannibal directive on October 7th. And for those who don't understand what that means, the Hannibal directive, that means that Israel, the IDF in particular, would kill their own people to prevent them from being captured, right? So that's the Hannibal directive. Remember how a lot of those people were called conspiracy theorists and all that jazz? Well, now, Haaretz, which is pro-Israel, has finally admitted that the IDF ordered Hannibal directive on October 7th to prevent Hamas taking soldiers captive. Right there, folks. There was crazy hysteria and decisions started being made without verified information. Documents and testimonies obtained by Haaretz reveal the Hannibal Operation Order, which directs the use of force to prevent soldiers being taken into captivity, was employed at 3 army facilities infiltrated by Hamas, potentially endangering civilians as well. I lost a friend over this, fam. I lost a friend over this, over sharing this information, not from Haaretz, but from independent journalists after October 7th. I lost a friend over this. They told me I was following conspiracy stuff. This is the topic for the discussion that Aaron Mate, or more so the debate that Aaron Mate had on this panel on Piers Morgan's show, the Hannibal directive. Because again, as much as I've said this before, as many times as Piers Morgan tries to make excuses for Israel and their actions and their behavior, something else is always waiting in the wings to prove that Israel is purposefully killing these Palestinian people, and that Israel has lied a number of times. Aaron Mate had to debate some crazy ass people. And I just call it like it is. The motherfuckers are crazy. And you guys know how, again, they'll interrupt and jump in when you start to tell facts. Let's start it off with this clip. Let's start it off with this. I think we'll do this and then we'll get into the rest of the debate. But this right here was fire.
You're a Russian settler, not an American settler. You're just stealing Palestinian land.
You're nothing but a talking head on TV. You have nothing to do with this land.
You're a Russian
you have
seller,
nothing
not
to
an
do with this
American
place. You keep saying
correct.
it.
I have nothing to do with mass murder and
apartheid.
apartheid.
Go back to Canada
yes,
and your little books behind you. You have nothing to do with this region. You don't speak the languages of this region. You're not from here. You never served here. I spoke to Arabs
not from there either.
So it gets pretty heated there, which is something that they really don't want you to say, right? What Aaron said at the end, you're not from there either. Yeah, they don't want you to say that part. And he said, you're not from here either. No, a lot of them are settlers. Let's get into the full cusp of it. The first part that I want to focus on is this conversation, this debate that Aaron has with this gentleman here who's right next to Pierce. This guy. Pay close attention to him. What a doozy.
Is that many people have been challenging the number of those who died that day and were wounded, challenging the pretext that they were all killed or wounded by Hamas, and that actually as a number, and no one's put an exact number to this, but a number of people on the Israeli side who died that day and were wounded were actually killed or wounded by Israeli fire. And so the significance of this development about the Hannibal directive, and it seems from what you're saying that you think it's highly likely it was deployed, is that it may be a number of Israelis were killed that way.
Yeah, you know, Piers, it may be true, and it may have been in the chaotic situation on October the 7th when Palestinian death squads were roaming around southern Israel as they were finished raping and burning and pillaging, and as Palestinians were coming in. It may have happened that that order was given, but let's not go astray from what really happened on that day.
Here we go. First thing that I noticed out of this conversation, he's telling you that the Hannibal directive may have happened, but then he goes on to tell you, he said it may be true, but then he goes on to tell you, but let's pay attention to what really happened that day. So essentially, he's telling you that it's not true. I don't know if anyone caught that.
The overwhelming, vast majority of Israelis, civilian and military, were executed in cold blood by Hamas murderers. And no BDS journalists and no self-appointed Israel experts or self-hating Jews that we might hear from afterwards will ever be able to convince anybody that this wasn't Hamas's doing and that.
So notice what he did there. He snuck that in. He called Aaron a self-hating Jew. So that's another thing that they'll do, right? Like that Zionists will do. If you don't agree with Zionism, and if you don't agree with them killing Palestinian people and occupying those people and oppressing those people, you're a self-hater.
A substantial amount of Israelis were killed by friendly fire and not by Hamas death squads. There is overwhelming evidence, visual evidence to the fact that this is Hamas's doing.
I understand. I'm going to go to Aaron Martin next, but just to be clear, Jonathan, I mean, the clear reality of what you've said is that if this directive was given, it must be very difficult to work out exactly how many people were killed and wounded by Israeli forces or Hamas. I mean, how do you know if a directive is given to open fire without constraints in order to prevent abduction? How do you know?
Well, that is something that they'll have to look into. And, you know, it took Israel with the world's most advanced after-action review and genetic forensic detailing with dentists, etc., and sifting through remains of charred bodies. It took Israel more than 3 months to actually establish the amount of Israelis killed, and up until just a few weeks ago, we were still getting reports of Israelis who were now confirmed dead and actually not taken hostage. That is the magnitude of the tremendous job here of understanding what happened on October the 7th. And of course, BDSers, Hamas apologists, Israel haters, and other Iranian propagandists, they will go and they will pounce this with great joy, as if to say, oh no, this wasn't the Hamas attack, this was Israel's doing, and Israelis killed themselves. I think that is utter nonsense.
Okay.
So let me just jump in here for a second. It's interesting that he wants to bring up forensics, all this forensics evidence that was done, but there didn't seem to be any forensics that was implemented to verify that sexual assault happened on October 7th. There was no forensics evidence for that. People just repeating that, no evidence whatsoever. No forensics evidence whatsoever. And people were just repeating it. But they had all this forensics, right? Let's bring in Aaron.
Utter nonsense, because this was a rampage by Hamas terrorists.
That is inarguable. The question is exactly who was killed by who. Aaron Marte, you've been listening to this. You've actually been reporting about this Hannibal directive, I believe, for quite some time. You know, hearing Jonathan Conricus, who was a former IDF international spokesman and obviously was in the IDF, hearing him concede that this was highly likely to have happened. What is your reading of this?
It did happen. That's been known for a very long time from Israeli military sources and witnesses who reported seeing Israeli forces fire on them on October 7th. The difference is that now, finally, an Israeli newspaper, Haaretz, has acknowledged this, and more Israeli military sources have come forward. The reporting from Haaretz says, according to one source, that the order was to turn the south of Israel, that frontier with Gaza, into a killing zone, which is exactly what happened. It underscores that Israel has no concern for civilian life, not just inside Gaza, but also its own people, because it did not want to have Hamas take captives that could be used for negotiations to free Palestinian hostages. And that's been lost here. There are thousands of Palestinian hostages in Israeli dungeons. And a major goal of Hamas here was to take captives and use them as leverage to free Palestinians who have been in Israeli dungeons for years and years and years.
Okay, so this is where the Zionists will come in and interrupt, because Aaron was just admitting facts there. So they don't like when you start telling truth that they don't want other people to know about, because the reality is everybody keeps talking about the Israeli hostages that Hamas captured, but a lot of people are omitting that there are Palestinian hostages. CNN, surprisingly, ran a investigative report where they had discovered that Palestinian detention center, and I say discovered because other people knew about this, where they were torturing those people, where they were, sexually assaulting Palestinian, not just women, but women, men, and children, even using dogs to assault them as well. So this is the information that Israel didn't want to get out. Israel doesn't want people to know that they have been torturing Palestinians, actually detaining them, and that these people are hostages, because these people have not been found guilty in a court of law. They have just been grabbing Palestinian people off the street. It's really scary, because you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the South during, or actually before, the civil rights movement, where all it took was for a white woman to say that you looked at her, or you whistled at her, or you said hello to her, for a black man to be just automatically guilty and tortured. Or even a black boy. That was Emmett Till. That's what it reminds me of. How they can just go take whoever they want, no court, no trial, and they've imprisoned these people. But he's going to interrupt because Aaron is starting to tell the truth. And they don't like that. Now, if you notice what I played you, did you see him interrupt him? No, Aaron did not interrupt him. But they always want to come interrupt you when you start telling people the truth about Israel.
And excuse me, I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you, despite your many falsehoods.
No, but what you're saying is disgusting.
Excuse me. I didn't interrupt you.
Hamas's murder.
And you're whitewashing mass murder, which is the whole point of suppressing the truth about October 7th since it happened. We have not heard.
Oh, and I guess you are the bearer of truth, a Hamas apologist. You will tell viewers around the world about truth. A propagandist for Hamas, someone who spreads falsehoods and lies about Hamas, and apologizes for them and tries to whitewash. Can you stop talking now?
I didn't interrupt you. You're a propagandist for the Israeli military, which is a mass murdering entity. And the whole point of this October 7th propaganda and burying the truth that Israel killed its own people was to manufacture support.
Have you ever been in Israel, Aaron?
Yes,
have you ever been in Israel? Lately, have you seen it?
Yes, I've lived in Israel.
You see the gaslighting that's going on. So this is what he's doing, right? So first, when you start to call out Israel and what they've done to the Palestinian people, even prior, especially when you mention prior to October 7th, then it's all of a sudden, let's turn it back to Hamas. Now you're being an evil person because you're making excuses for what Hamas did. That's to take your attention away from what Israel did to those people. That's a trick. That's one gaslighting tactic. Obviously, Aaron doesn't fall for that. Then the next thing it is, have you been there? Have you been to Israel? How do you know? Have you been there? What do you know about the land? You're not one of us. You're not one of the people. What do you know? Just ways to try to make it seem like you're not credible so that people believe that Israel is on the right side.
Yes, I've lived in Israel.
Yes, have you been in the kibbutzim after October the 7th, Aaron? Have you been here? Have you seen the families?
Okay.
Have you met them?
Can you stop deflecting?
Have you met the survivors? Have you met the hostage
survivors? Can you stop deflecting, interrupting?
No, because
I understand why you want to change the subject.
as if you have any authority on the matter.
Okay, I speak as someone who's concerned with facts.
You speak as if you know anything. You speak as if you know Israeli civilians, as if you know what Hamas did on October the 7th.
I understand your job as a propagandist.
You haven't been here. You haven't watched Israeli civilians murdered by Hamas.
I understand you're doing your job, but I'm asking you to shut up now because I didn't interrupt you. You're a
I never saw Aaron get this angry before, ever. This was a first for me.
Propagandist for mass murder, which is why you're trying to shut me up.
Still just a
in October. Excuse me.
Apologist.
Stop talking. I didn't interrupt you. I let you spew on for minutes. I did not interrupt you. Now, the reason why you went to interrupt me is because I'm acknowledging the facts, which is that Israel did kill its own people on October 7th and hid that truth to manufacture support for its own mass murder campaign inside of Gaza, which has killed tens of thousands of people. That's the atrocity unfolding before our eyes right now.
Aaron, let me jump in here because, Aaron, let me ask you. I mean, it is quite clear from their own admission through the way they were live streaming a lot of the barbaric acts they were committing that Hamas murdered many, many, many people that day. You presumably accept that.
And this is what I don't like what Pierce does here, because, again, he is supposed to be the moderator. He's not supposed to participate in the discussion as if he's on one side or the other. Also notice he's not doing his job as a moderator by preventing the interruptions. When someone starts to interrupt as a moderator, you're supposed to go, okay, stop, let so-and-so finish saying what they're saying, right? So like I said before, he keeps continuing to say that he feels, oh, I'm not pro one side or the other, but he is. He's pro-Israel, and that's his job. It's his job to be pro-Israel. So now he comes in and he tries to bring it back to let's focus on Hamas. That's his job. What people have to understand, as entertaining as some of these debates can be, you have to fully understand you got to follow the money. And when you follow the money, you'll understand that Piers Morgan is doing this because this is what he is paid to do. He is paid to be pro-Israel. He is paid to shut down any type of radical thoughts. He is paid to allow the voices to come on, the Zionist voices to overtalk and interrupt people. Always pay attention to that. That is what he's paid to do. Never forget that.
There certainly were atrocities on October 7th. Yes.
Right. I mean, how many people do you believe Hamas killed and wounded?
Well, the point is there should have been an independent investigation of this from the start, which Israel has.
I'm sure we will.
Because
I'm just asking
logically,
you.
Excuse me.
You're a journalist. You'll have seen all the same stuff as me, right? You'll have seen Hamas terrorists openly boasting about the horrors they were committing. It seems to me that it is indisputable that the vast majority of people who were killed that day were killed by Hamas. Now, what is significant? What is significant to me is the revelation that this Hannibal directive was issued means that there was clearly some people on the Israeli side who were killed by Israeli forces as part of this open fire without constraints, even if it imperils the lives of Israelis. I don't think we know yet what the split is in terms of numbers, but I think to try and pretend, I mean, you accuse Jonathan Conricus there of deflecting, but to try and pretend that the vast majority of people who were killed and wounded that day were not killed and wounded by Hamas would also be a deflection of the truth, wouldn't it?
Well, no, because Aaron was speaking and Jonathan interrupted him. If he wouldn't have interrupted him, then Aaron could have finished what he was saying, and we probably could have gotten around to that point, but he interrupted him to try to throw him off on purpose. This is another thing that they do, just another piece of propaganda, right? To try to get you to focus. And he brought up a different issue. That's not what Aaron was talking about at that time. So yes, he was deflecting. But again, you see what Pierce is paid to do. I'm surprised. I have to say this, folks. I'm surprised when I saw this come across my Twitter feed. I was shocked that Pierce Morgan even allowed Aaron Monte to come on, because I told you guys, I said, I don't think he would bring on someone like the Gray Zone, right? Because they have been to Israel and they are Jewish and they're anti-Zionist. So I was like, I don't think he would bring them on. Max Blumenthal has written a book about this. So I will say that I was wrong. He did bring him on, but this whole panel thing that's happening here is too many damn people. So that's another thing, Pierce. You got too many damn people on this panel. If you're going to do these debates need to be just two people, and you're supposed to be the moderator in the middle, not taking one side or the other. All these damn people in here, there's too many damn people. Just keeping it real.
It would be a deflection of the truth to insist without evidence that the vast majority of people were killed by Hamas. We don't know because there has not been a credible independent investigation, which Israel obviously wants to stop. Now, think of it logically here. Certainly, yes, Palestinian militants committed atrocities on October 7th. But think of it logically. If now you have confirmation from an Israeli newspaper and Israeli military sources that a directive was issued to turn that area into a killing zone and to achieve that goal of preventing anyone from crossing back into Gaza. Excuse me, that's exactly what Howard supported. I didn't interrupt you. I'm going to finish my sentence.
No, that isn't what was said.
Excuse me, if that directive is, that's exactly what.
This is where Pierce should be jumping in as the host of the show and should be shutting down the interruption, but he's not doing that. And again, that is on purpose. Notice what I said, another playbook. This is what they do. As soon as you start to tell facts about Israel that they don't really want people to know or to get out, they come in and they interrupt you. Again, no one interrupted this dude. Okay?
It says in Haaretz, excuse me. That's what it says. I'll post it online afterwards.
Well, the fact that it says so in Haaretz doesn't make it true. And if you're citing a source, please be specific. And it's a matter of real consequence.
I did, and you're lying about my
the
source.
Directive was to turn it into a killing
Israeli military source.
Isn't correct.
All right, well, hang on. Okay, hang on, please.
He's interrupting.
When you talk over each other, it's very hard to keep up with it. Let me bring in Gideon.
Yeah, but now you come in. So you guys see what Pierce is doing now. Pierce Morgan comes in and he says you guys are talking over each other, but he doesn't let Aaron finish what he was saying. And that's on purpose. So, right. I've never seen Aaron this heated. So that's why I was just like, wow, Aaron came in hot because he was pissed, and rightfully so. So they bring in this guy. Let me fast forward. Sorry. I'm just going to speed up a little bit because there were certain parts here that I wanted to go to. Because like I said, they cut in. We're going to go back to that guy who claims that he's indigenous to the land. We're going to go back to that guy. Sorry, guys. It's just I think I'm going to the right spot. Oh, here we go. All righty. Sorries.
Bad guys. And there are many examples of people around here who push back on the bad guys, some successfully, some less successfully. The Kurds, our Muslim allies, have successfully pushed back on the Iranian jihadists, the Turkish, the Iraqi, all the folks that hate them. And that's why we're allied. People like us, ethnic minorities in this region that are armed, survive because we're able to push back on the jihad. And the fact that you think that there's no other minorities that are like us is just laughable. We are a small people in a small land.
All right, you
and
made
we're
the
going
point.
to push back hard.
You made the point. Let me ask you this question.
Small people in a small land, but you're going to push back hard.
Hang on, please. I've got a question for the. I have a question for the rabbi.
Go ahead.
I have a question,
Thank you, sir.
and it's this:
Yes, sir.
Why has there been a spike now in new settlements on the West Bank, including retroactively authorizing 3 outposts? How can that do anything but massively inflame the already extremely tense atmosphere around the West Bank?
Hello? Right? Because as we've said multiple times, Hamas is not in the West Bank. So miss me with all that Israel has a right to defend itself, bish. Because the people in the West Bank, this is a totally different thing. But you want to annex in its entirety. They'll say, well, we have the right to defend ourselves and it's to protect ourselves. No, fuck that. Anybody can use that excuse. White supremacists use that excuse in this country and said, well, we want to protect ourselves. We're afraid of the black people, so that's why. So miss all that. That's just another thing that shows you this is another form of supremacy. Never forget that.
And how is this defensible?
It's not only is it defensible, it's the only way forward. The only way forward is for the Jewish people to live in their land, to push back on the Palestinian Authority and the Hamas and those entities, to assert sovereignty.
Their land. Everybody hear this? Their land. The land is rightfully, apparently theirs, even though other people are already there on the damn land. They want to get rid of the Palestinian people in the West Bank. He said their land. So do you hear the rhetoric that's coming out of his mouth? He's already telling you that the land belongs to Israel. It doesn't belong to the Palestinian people. How in the world can people just sit there and not even push back on that rhetoric? Piers Morgan sitting right there, and this man is telling you his whole intentions with his whole damn chest. He said that with his whole chest, letting you know that the land is theirs and that they need that land. So how can you defend Israel anymore beyond this point? There's no Hamas in the West Bank. These people are not trying to kill you. These people are not coming after you. They're under apartheid. They can't even walk on the same street as you. They're the ones that are in power. The Palestinian people have no power. If anything, they should be afraid of you.
So hold on one second. I'm not American. I was born in Israel. My parents were Russian refuseniks. Read the freaking Wikipedia. For God's sakes, I served in the army here and I just came back to the reserves right now. Please do me a favor. Do me a favor. I was born in Haifa. I speak Hebrew and English. You are a Canadian from nowhere. You have nothing to do with anything.
You're a Russian.
All you know
I
is
apologize.
Discordia.
You're a Russian settler, not an American settler.
You're just
stealing Palestinian land.
He said you're a Russian settler stealing Palestinian land. I told you, this is why they don't allow DNA tests in Israel, because they don't want you to see that a lot of the people are not from there. They're not from there. A lot of them from Russia, Poland, Ukraine. Benjamin Netanyahu is from Poland. They're not from there. In other words, you're a motherfucking poser. That's what you are, a poser.
Man,
You're nothing but a talking head on TV. You have nothing to do with this land. You have nothing to do with this place. You keep saying
correct.
I
have nothing to do with mass murder and apartheid.
Go back to Canada and your little books behind you. You have nothing to do with this region. You don't speak the languages of this region. You're not from here. You never served here. I spoke to Arabs today.
See how quickly he was able to just say it? Go back to Canada, he says, with your little books. You're not from here. Now, this goes to show you again, what is this really about? Because Aaron is Jewish, but Aaron's not a Zionist. This is where you get to debunk the whole, this is just about religion. This is just about Judaism. No, it's not just about that. This was always the plan. The plan of Zionism. Why do you guys think Facebook, look, Facebook just announced, okay? Saw this earlier today. Facebook just announced that now it is not going to be fair for you, I guess, to use the word Zionist on Facebook. What is happening here, fams? What? Now you can't use the word Zionist on Facebook. Pretty sure that's going to backfire.
You're not from there.
I was born in Haifa, Israel. My parents fought to come to this land from the Russian Soviet regime. And you are just a Canadian citizen.
They're from Russia. Let's call up Putin. Come get your boy. Putin, come get your dude.
Out there sniping with your little understandings of things. Go back and read.
We have a
book
lot
and
more
be part of
common
something
ethnically
else.
than you do
Please
with anybody from that
do
land.
Me a favor. I am an ethnic
Jews.
Jewish person, which is a Judean from this land.
Listen,
we
I don't
have
want
the
you to
same
carry on.
DNA as the Arabs. Almost the same
All right,
language.
fascinating though it is where you both come from.
You're the same
Hang
DNA as the. Okay.
Look,
your DNA is from Russia. He just told you his parents are from Russia.
There it is. Can we get back to the question? Rabbi Fleischer, I want you to justify the expansion of the settlements.
Today at a well. At
how do you justify
talking about the future? This guy, he's in Canada.
Rabbi Fleischer, if you may.
Yeah.
How do you justify?
So see how this guy just continues to talk on.
At a well at Hebron.
Hang on, please. Can I talk, please?
Destroying it, which is what Israel does.
Please let it go.
Yes, sir.
Rabbi Fleischer, how do you justify the expansion of settlements at this particular time? All over the West Bank. I don't
justify it. I laud it. I'm proud of it. I can't be prouder about this government. And finally, we are resettling our land, our small land that pushes back against jihadism. This is correct in terms of security. It's correct in terms of pushing back on jihad. It is also our legal land that we purchased, that we won in wars.
No, it is not, because again, under international law, the settlements are illegal. And then he's sitting here saying that it's legal. It's not legal. This guy is a fucking liar. And honestly, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, like, no way I could have been sitting there. Because if you look at Aaron's face, Aaron has this look on his face like, that motherfucker. You know what I mean? Just that kind of thing. But this guy blatantly just told you he's proud of the expansion of the settlements. He's proud of that. He's proud of Israel trying to annex the entire part of the West Bank. He's totally proud of that. Does everybody hear what he just said? Does everybody hear that? Because that is proof, once again, that this is not about defense. This is not about Hamas. This is about ethnically cleansing the fucking land. Now, this guy sits right on your show and he says this to you, to the entire audience. He don't give a damn. And he's supposed to get some kind of pass because he's a rabbi. That's supremacy at its finest. He just told you. He let the cat out the bag.
It is our ancestral land. You dig in the dirt, and that's where our history is.
Let me ask the same question. Let me ask the same question.
Wait a minute, Pierce. Hold on. This is the important point. You asked about the future of Gaza. Future of Gaza is the same. Israel's going to govern Gaza. Israel's going to govern it first militarily, then it's going to resettle it. Decent Arabs who are post-jihad, anti-jihad.
Did you hear what he just said? Resettle Gaza. If this isn't the mask off moment, I don't know what else to tell people who are still sitting up here defending Israel, who are defending Netanyahu, and they're letting that psycho come speak to Congress, Netanyahu. I don't know what else to say to people because he's telling you right here, this is a big mask off moment. I'm surprised Piers Morgan actually posted this video. Wonder how long this will last. But that's the reality. They're going to resettle. Netanyahu said they have no intention of resettling. I told you Netanyahu was lying. And to my friend who said that I was lying and that I was a conspiracy theorist, whatever, maybe you wake up now. It is very obvious to anyone who knew the history, who read up on it and did their research. You can't blame everything on Hamas. Not everything that happened is because of Hamas. We'll go on a little bit more here.
Who are pro-Israel and want an upward mobility in life, they're going to become residents of this land. They're going to have a future, not under jihad, but under normalization. And the Jewish people are going to live in our tiny land, especially in Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank.
So do you see what's happening? He just told you that they're going to pick out the type of Arab people that they want to live there. How is this right? They get to decide who gets to live there and who doesn't. The good ones, as he put it. This is what the U.S. government supports.
Okay, Jonathan.
In short, he's saying we can steal Palestinian land because God promised it to us.
It's not Palestinian land. It's our land. You just don't know your history.
I'm actually curious. Yeah. I'm curious what Jonathan Conricus thinks of that. What you've just heard. Do you agree with him?
Well, I think that, I want to connect first of all, I think it's very interesting that we are 4 men. I think all of us probably born Jewish, if I read the Wikipedia's right, and with quite a diversity of views on topic. 3 of us live here, 1 doesn't, but we have very strong views on this topic. And I think it's interesting. The day appears that you will have 4 Muslim guys, 2 of them speaking positively about Israel and 2 of them speaking on behalf of Palestinians. Then I will know that we have made tremendous strides forward. Until then, it'll be a lot of infighting here. Regarding what you...
Let me pause there and we'll stop it there because I do want to do the call-in segment as well. First of all, Piers Morgan has had Muslim guests on the show that are anti-Palestinian. So that goes to tell you how much Jonathan has researched. But it's absolutely disgusting and appalling. This guy sat up there and told you his parents are from Russia. His parents aren't even from there. That go to tell you, you talk about generations, when people say first generation, second generation, third generation, his parents, not grandparents, parents are from Russia. He's Russian. Putin, come get your dude. Putin, come get your dude. We are going to do the call-in after show. I know a lot was discussed here tonight, but I will not be able to do call-in next week because I am traveling and I will be traveling out of the country. So I will miss you guys next week, but we're going to do it tonight. I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be back. Eric, I think we got some super chats to read and we'll do call-in when I get back.
All right, cool. Yeah, Sabby's going to be gone for the week. You won't see her for dust for a little while anyways, but we got her tonight. Yeah, so this is the time when yours truly, Eric T. Red here, goes from the background to the foreground for a couple minutes while we give Sabrina a break before we transition over into the Zoom Hangout where we want to hear from what you all have to say, and you can we'll be posting that link in the chat. Sabby's actually going to be setting up the room, as part of her break and whatnot. And yes, we'll be posting the chat and even a passcode. Sometimes you need the passcode, sometimes you don't. And you can talk about the any of the topics from the show or most anything else you want. I'd like to hear from you. I encourage everyone to come in, check it out, and get as many people participating as possible. It's always good when we have more people and more voices. The cameras are optional in the Zoom chat, and sometimes you even get a look at a certain kitty cat guest. Well, she's ignoring us. Well, maybe she'll look at us during the Zoom chat, but that's Kiva, so she's sometimes in there. Anyways, let's look at what we got for some of these super chats. Thank you, Alcus, for being a member for 3 months. What is up with most of the Western leaders not wanting to step down? Bibi, Macron, Biden, the fear of losing control is real for the Western world. Yeah, I think when these leaders get in place, it's what they live for. It's a personality type, like that having that power, being the guy, being the top guy is just such an addictive thing for those types of personalities that you really have to take these offices kind of from their cold dead hands. I mean, they would just do anything for that power, and so yeah, they hang around. And thanks for the super chat, Brian Daleski. Brian, thanks for the Brian. Okay, Brian D. There you go. Thanks for this super chat. Left groups won't come together because too many are easily butthurt peeps in these groups, and we all know who they are, who hold grudges and won't let go, can't organize that way, and it won't change. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Brian. My take on this is that we need to be focusing on and talking much less about personalities and in particular people, and be talking much more about demands, about what are we really asking for. If a person in this sphere, in this environment, can't tell you what are their demands, what are they, what do they really want out of all this or out of their leaders, then you got to wonder, what are they really doing here? It's really key. And I think if we have clear demands, then that's where you can start coalescing together, coming together. Corey was making fun of me for using the word coalesce because he thinks it's too fancy a word, but it's where we can coalesce or come together based on clear demands. And Old Man Barker says Jamal Thomas coined the phrase buzzsaw mate. Yeah, I'm not sure who gets credit for that initial coining, but especially after we saw it tonight, it's a great name for Aaron. Great job by Aaron Montan. That, of course, I can tell you just from the little bit of work in front of the mic and the camera that I do, it's not easy, and it's really easy to get distracted and taken off course and off track. So kudos to him. And Danielle's saying, notice they cut Aaron's mic. Yeah, it was kind of like they were like either muting or turning down the mic sometimes to maybe to try to lower the crosstalk. So sometimes they would do it, sometimes they wouldn't. But yeah, I noticed that too. There were times when Aaron kind of came in and then they would turn the mic up a little bit after he stopped talking. So they were probably trying to futz around with those. Thanks for the super chat, Sparky. Burnt cars were buried quickly, bodies and all, no forensics. I mean, this is something Max Blumenthal has talked about, that Hamas simply doesn't have the firepower and the weaponry to do the kind of damage that was done on that day to those vehicles and those bodies. I mean, it's not like a squadron of Hamas tanks rolled in. I mean, there's no such thing. So it's even that is it's quite telling. Thank you for the super chat, Justin B. We can do what France is doing in November in the U.S. with Jill Stein and other Green Party candidates. Besides Jill running, there are over 20 Green Party candidates running for Congress in this cycle. Yeah, I think that's, definitely something, to watch out for if you have Green Party candidates, who are on your ballot, definitely support them. I mean, look at it this way. Figure out what you want, right, out of candidates, out of your leadership, right? What are your demands? And then when you have a particular candidate that meets those demands, that does well by your list, well, then it's kind of a no-brainer to vote for them, I'd say, and see what happens. It's, the worst that can happen is, it won't work out, or they won't get elected, or, even if they do disappoint you, it's like, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we got to keep trying and take our best shot at these things. But what I say about Jill Stein and her candidacy is, when I compare what she says in her platform to my demands, they sync up, very, very, very well. So it's, I say it's a no-brainer, from that point of view, to vote for Stein and for the other Green candidates. Thank you for the super chat, Leprechaun Alley. At some point, the Israeli people must realize that the fox is guarding the hen house, because they are not going to enjoy post-conflict Israel, a captive audience like the U.S. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff is not good for, for them over there, really. Blue Spencer became a YouTube member. Welcome aboard, Blue. Happy to have you. And thanks for the super chat, Jewel in the Machine. They won't stop at Palestine either. Remember the Greater Israel Project. They've already taken the Golan Heights and keep pushing south on Lebanon. This has to stop. Free Palestine, heal Palestine. Yeah, I hear you, Jewel in the Machine. It's, I described the whole operation as, simply a genocidal land grab. It's, it has echoes and similarities to what was done to the Native Americans in the U.S. And, it's simply using the power, and the power dynamic is always crucial when you look at these things, using the power to take the land and resources. It's really as simple as that. And thank you for the super chat, Sparky. A lot of super chats in here. Appreciate it. Hopefully workers will eventually win out in France, but they may need to storm the Bastille again. And by the way, he sends his love to Sabby. Thanks for that super chat, Sparky. Thanks for this one from None of Your Business. He is an old black preacher posing as a rabbi. Interesting. And thanks for the super chat, Sparky. I applaud Aaron's efforts. Yes, definitely agree with your sentiment there. And then we had one here from the Rumbles. Let's see, put that in the right place. All right. Thanks for this tipped comment on Rumble from RB Ham, who we see, who will probably be seen, we tend to see in the Zoom hangouts afterwards. So he says, great show, Sabby, and shameless plug, please help a Canadian brother out and subscribe to my brand new Rumble channel, RB Ham, Beyond the Pale. Thank you so much. Yeah, RB's doing good stuff there on the Rumbles, so help him out, and we'll see if we catch him on the Zoom Hangout. Let's get that evened up. All right. Now, work our way. Whoops, wrong one. I keep hitting the wrong one on that. I want to go that way. There we go.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Okay. Let's head on over to the call-in show. So it is pinned to the top of the chat. I'm going to go ahead and start the room now. I'll go ahead and open it. I like to open it when I'm on the show, just in case something crazy happens. I'm just going to mute myself on the Zoom, and I ask that everyone else does the same. And all right, I see people already getting into the room. It looks like you don't need I'll put it here anyway, just in case one of you is asking one of you to put in the passcode, which is 050391. All right. You got questions, you got things you want to say, come on over to the call in. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. Let me hear your voice. If you want to speak, you are going to make sure you hit the reaction emoji on Zoom, and then you just raise your hand. So I'm going to show you here with the camera. I actually move my face up. If I go down, okay, yeah. So down there at the bottom, if you scroll over to reactions, then you will click on reactions, and then you will be able to see the option to raise your hand. And Eric, I'm going to go ahead and let me go ahead and transfer host to you. And then you will be able to see. I'll go ahead and transfer host.
We'll see you in there, everybody.
Transfer host to you. All right. So I have made Eric the host. I'm heading out over there. If you want to chat, come join me over there. Other than that, have a good night. Keep up the fight.